28th. An announcement that we had executive session prior to this on litigation and personnel. 2.01 on the agenda, please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, we got power now. 2.03, may I have a motion to adopt the agenda? Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion on the agenda or changes? Okay. So Bill and Ed, since we're doing it remote, we'll just do a pause, because I know, Ed, you might be driving, so we'll just do a pause because of the time, the delay. So all those in favor of passing the agenda as presented, say aye.
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 Opposed, say nay. Okay, agenda passes. 3.01, may I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Move to approve.
Second.
Thank you. Thank you. Any discussion, corrections, et cetera, on the minutes?
Yeah, I'll speak up. We have an agenda item later on in the meeting regarding record retention. And my understanding is that depending on how we navigate that conversation, I'm not trying to get ahead of ourselves too much, but there's a possibility that the videos that are on YouTube would no longer be available to the public in an ongoing way. And so that means that the minutes become more important. It elevates the importance of the minutes. And so not knowing that that's how that's going to pan out, I think it's, I was just reviewing the minutes, and I know that the minutes are summary, but there's a point in the minutes where it says, Mr. Raber expressed his concern with the board's inability to come to a consensus in regards to our superintendent search. And I just thought it should be clarified in the minutes, especially if we're possibly removing the YouTube videos, that my concern is not just our inability to come to a consensus, but it's also the need for transparency and accountability to the public. My concern is also that we had a highly qualified candidate with a strong skill set that we turned down. And my concern is that when I asked my colleagues on the board for clarity, I felt like I didn't receive substantial legitimate concerns. My concern is for teachers and our support staff and our administrators who feel they are not being heard. And my concern is for stability and morale for both students and staff. And my concern is that I think we'll have a limited candidate pool for superintendent, not only because there's a shortage, but also because we have a history of making budgetary cuts and board members who sometimes overstep. And so I think it's important that the minutes reflect this, especially if we're considering removing videos of board meetings from YouTube. So
So you'd like those items to be added to the minutes of
yeah,
record?
I think so.
Okay.
I'm also curious to know, I'd like to hear from the rest of you. The minutes read that several of the final candidates withdrew after their interviews. By definition, I think several gives the impression that there were more than two that withdrew. My understanding is that the final candidate didn't withdraw until after Mr. Norcross met with them. Maybe I don't understand the storyline correctly, but I think that perhaps should be modified as well.
Okay. So since Mr. Norcross is driving, let's not put him in that situation to.
Yeah.
So how about we table the minutes approval? I can do that, right? You can do that. We can. We'll just table this, and I'm still not into the meeting yet. If there was, are there multiple ones in there? All right, so is there one that should be pulled? What's the date? I'm almost in, but,
Yeah, so that would be from, I believe it's February 28th. School board meeting minutes. Yes, that's the one.
okay.
So if we could table that until,
So we'll pull that one out and bring it back for discussion, or, we'll amend it, rather,
yeah,
and then bring it back for a vote on the next meeting.
Procedurally, you modify your motion to approve the minutes with the exception of that date.
Okay, so can I have a friendly agreement to modify the motion that we will approve the minutes with the exception of the, minutes as presented with the exception of the February 28th meeting minutes?
yeah, I'll make a motion that we
Well,
approve.
Somebody, who made the original motion? I think it was
Mm.
Mrs. Gallagher?
Yes.
Okay. Is that okay to amend it that way? And I think you seconded it. so
Yes,
you're
sir.
Okay, all right. Okay, got that cleared up. Any other discussion items? Okay, so the motion on the floor again is to approve the minutes as presented, with the exception of the February 28th meeting minutes. They will be covered next time. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Okay, passed as amended, or as moved. All right, so President's report briefly, just a reminder.
Mark, I'm sorry, this is Ed. I missed the mute button there, or unmute button. I want to abstain from the minutes since I wasn't present last meeting.
Okay, yeah, all right, so you abstain. All right, good, noted.
Yep. Sorry for the delay.
All right, no, we understand, just drive safely. All right, so the two things, one is, I think, Mr. Whitman, you said, what's April 11th? Right, reminder that, hopefully I didn't take your thunder on this one, but just reminder, we'll be at Cash's, because this building will be under renovation, and it's Cash's Auditorium from here until notified otherwise, but probably end of the summer. And we took advantage of the space behind me for YouTube. It might be a little small, but it's the job openings. Remember, go to CSDonline/page/1107 for our list of jobs that are open we'd like to get filled. All right, Mr. Woodman for 4.02.
Several months ago, the board approved that we will be conducting a survey, and on Thursday, I'm going to read the email that's going to go to the community, but there's several surveys that are going to be going out. Our students, 3rd through 5th grade, will have a survey, then a separate survey for our students in secondary, 6th through 12. Then we have a survey for all of our staff of CSD, and then one for the CSD families and community. So here's the communication that's going out to the community. Dear CSD families and community members, an important series of climate surveys will be available to all 3rd through 12th grade students, CSD staff, and community members on Monday, April 1st, 2023. The surveys are designed to gather information about perceptions of climate and culture within our district. The results of the surveys will be used to help prioritize goals and needs for the coming years and will be made publicly available at a later date. The surveys will close at midnight on April 14th. We strongly encourage all members of the community to participate in the survey. Your input is essential to our efforts to create a positive learning environment for all students. We want to hear from parents, guardians, students, staff, and community members to ensure that we have a comprehensive understanding of our community's needs and priorities. Please note the following important information. The community survey will be emailed to all parents, guardians on April 1st, as well as posted on the CSD website and social media channels. 3rd through 12th grade students will receive time in class to complete the student survey. If you wished to opt your child out of the survey, please notify your school building office as soon as possible. The survey should take no more than 10 to 15 minutes to complete, and all responses will be kept anonymous. We thank you in advance for your time and thoughtful responses. Your input is invaluable to us, and we look forward to using the survey results to improve our schools and better serve our community. Sincerely, Kurt Whitman.
Okay. Anything else? All right, we got student government tonight. So CMS, you want to start since you're at the end of the table?
Good evening. My name is Trinity Funk, and I'm president of the SSB at CMS, and this is our report. Next slide, please. Since February, we had a Deb Crawford first annual food drive and a pop-up hump day cafe. Next slide, please. For the Deb Crawford first annual food drive, we had 1,136 total items donated, and the food drive was dedicated to Mrs. Deb Crawford, who taught at CMS and ran our food pantry. Next slide, please. We had a pop-up hump day cafe sale last week. We sold coffee and donuts, and SSB works in shifts throughout the day until we sell out, which we sold out of our donuts in one period this time. So, yeah, we did not buy enough this time. And it's currently our favorite fundraiser with the students, since we always have a success. Next slide, please. Talking about the PTSA, prom, and CMS coming up. Next slide, please. So our PTSA fundraiser is on April 19th from 4 to 8 p.m. at Panera, and 20% of the sales will benefit the PTSA. Next slide, please. Then we have prom. It's at the end of April. The prom committee has been meeting regularly, like every day this past week. The theme is Under the Stars, and we have a student DJ. Next slide, please. Finally, CMS is being planned. There's always something for everybody. There's games, open mic, food sales, and class games in the afternoon. Any questions? All right, thank you.
But very happy to hear about the 1,100 cans or items donated for the food
it was
drive.
very good.
Mrs. Crawford was very dedicated to CMS as well as the food pantry. I know from prior experience, it was her passing was quite a surprise, but it's awesome to hear that you're continuing that in her honor. Thank you.
I'd like to say thank you all for doing that and for getting involved in volunteerism. I think that's vitally important for our community, so you guys will be commended for that.
Okay, Cassius?
Hello, I'm Ellie Kaufman, and I'm the vice president at Caches. Next slide, please. The main topics in this slide will be spring sports, club updates, the trip to Washington, D.C., and our spring musical. Next slide, please. The spring sports season is beginning. These sports include baseball, softball, lacrosse for both boys and girls, boys tennis, boys volleyball, and track and field for both boys and girls. Next slide, please. Tomorrow, the Caches student government will be taking a field trip to Washington, D.C., where we'll be getting a guided tour of the U.S. Capitol building and the Library of Congress through Representative John Joyce's office. Next slide, please. Our gifted program has been active in the academic competition, and they recently participated in a 3-2-1 competition. Excuse me. Next slide, please. The Caches Internet Club will be helping with the Chicken and Stuff, a Rotary fundraiser for Therapeutic Writing Center on April 10th. They're also planning to help with the United Way May of Caring, an event to help clean and beautify yards and buildings in our community. In addition, the Interact Club, in conjunction with the Chambersburg Rotary Club, is collecting non-perishable food items to be donated to the Mental Health Association of Franklin and Fulton County. Next slide, please. NHS is hosting their yearly induction on May 15th in the Caches Auditorium. 10th and 11th graders who qualify and accept an invitation will be inducted at this event. There will be light refreshments after the ceremony, and Judge Van Horn will be there as the keynote speaker. The school board is welcome to join. Please contact Christina Chapman at CSD Online if you have any questions. Also, there's a call for volunteers. If any school board members are involved in organizations in the community that need volunteers, please contact Christina Chapman or Tammy Piper so that they can share opportunities with NHS students. Next slide, please. And our Cassius Drama Club will be putting on Godspell in the spring, and the dates have actually moved up, so it's April 14th and April 15th. Next slide, please. And we have no updates from the FFA. Any questions? Thank you.
Nope, no questions, but I acknowledge it's awesome that our U.S. Capitol is open again for business and that people were able to go down and visit their representatives and that you get to take advantage of that tomorrow. Or the group
Enjoy.
does, so. Had been shut down for too long. Right. And then JROTC.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Carter Emmons, and I am the Administrative Affairs Officer and Marksmanship Team Captain of the NJROTC program at Cassius. Our company has had a very eventful month this March, and we are excited for the many opportunities to come. Next slide, please. On February 25th, our drill team traveled to New Jersey to compete in the Sterling Regional Academic PT and Drill Competition. Competing events included first-year regulation drill, color guard, and inspection, as well as academics, PT, armed exhibition, and armed-unarmed regulation drill. Our junior varsity first-year teams won first place overall, and our varsity teams placed second. On top of that, the funds made at this competition were donated to the Wounded Warrior Project. Next slide, please. On March 1st, the NJROTC held our annual Managers Inspection and Pass and Review ceremony in the Cassius Fieldhouse. Our company was formally inspected by Commander Christopher McCurry of the Navy Talent Acquisition Group, Pittsburgh, and participated in a Pass and Review ceremony demonstrating our cadets' accomplishments. This event also included performances from our armed drill platoons and concluded with a formal awards ceremony. Next slide, please. This month, our marksmanship team competed in 2 different competitions. The first was held on March 4th and was hosted by our NJROTC here in Chambersburg at the local AMVETS Post 224. We entered 2 separate teams into this competition, and they won first and second place. Additionally, our rifle team traveled to Perth Amboy, New Jersey, to compete in the Area 4 Marksmanship Championship. Our team placed 4th overall, and our highest level shooter, Cadet Joshua Moon, placed 11th out of 101. Next slide, please. On the 8th of March, a select few of our cadets had the outstanding opportunity to take a field trip to Annapolis, Maryland, and tour the United States Naval Academy. Our cadets had the chance to meet with midshipmen and naval officers who attended the academy, view the grounds of the prestigious school, and tour the U.S. Naval Academy Museum. A week after, on the 15th, our company hosted the Service Academy and ROTC Scholarship Night at Cassius. Those who attended were students, parents, and prospective minds from across Franklin County who had the chance to meet with representatives from the National Service Academies and ROTC branches. Next slide, please. To finish out the drill season, on March 18th, the NJROTC drill team traveled to New Jersey and competed in the Rancocas Academic, PT, and Drill Competition. We entered teams for academics, PT, marksmanship, exhibition, first-year varsity drill, and color guard. Chambersburg placed first overall out of 16 schools from across the Northeast. Next slide, please. Recently, one of our cadets, Dana Rosenberry, was formally recognized for her essay submission in the 2023 American Legion Essay Contest titled What Americanism Means to Me. Dana was selected as the first place winner of the American Legion Post 46, and she received a certificate and cash award for her outstanding work. Next slide, please. Our NJROTC was very satisfied with the outcome of this past month, and we are excited for more events, trips, and competitions to come. On March 25th, our cadets in honor roll had the opportunity to travel to Washington, D.C. and tour the United States Capitol. They also got the chance to tour the Udvar Hazy Air and Space Museum. On April 12th, our cadets will have the opportunity to travel to Penn State University main campus and meet with the midshipmen from the Penn State Navy ROTC. Our cadets will have the opportunity to learn more about life at Penn State and what their ROTC programs have to offer. Additionally, on April 22nd, our company has offered to volunteer for the Handsprings for Hope invitational event, a gymnastics meet where donations go to the Penn State Children's Hospital in Hershey to help those in need. Similar to the Penn State trip, our cadets will have the opportunity to go to Shippensburg University and meet with cadets from the Army ROTC and live the life of a college cadet for a day. This will take place on April 27th. On May 3rd, our academic team will compete against other schools in Area 4 in a quiz bowl competition. Every year, our company holds a formal military ball where there will be a formal military dinner and an awards ceremony to recognize our cadets for their accomplishments this school year. This year, our ball will be held at the Orchards Restaurant on May 5th. Furthermore, on May 12th, our drill team will have the opportunity to go on a field trip to the United States Marine Corps Museum as well as a National Silent Drill Team performance in Washington, D.C. Also, our drone team will be traveling to compete in the Area 4 Drone Championship on May 13th this year. Our NJROTC will be holding our annual hike and picnic on May 26th, where all of our cadets will take a hike in the woods and later be able to enjoy a picnic to conclude our long and rewarding year. Does anybody have any questions?
Wonderful.
Is that hike locally?
Can you repeat that, sir?
The hike, is it locally or you be in the?
It's local, sir.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
I don't have a question, but I had the honor of being at the pass and review, and I would encourage anybody in the community to attend that. The level of pride that I took in seeing that was very high. It's really a very neat experience.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you guys for your time.
Thank you as well for all that you do and representing the community. Every time you guys go somewhere, it's, you know, you're setting the bar so high, it's almost like we expect to win. So, so a lot of pressure, but you guys are sticking with it and delivering. So it's very much appreciated and well done. All right, Ms. Lynch, Foundation report. Good evening.
Hey,
So 2 years ago, we started with our February board presentation of providing just a brief overview post-audit. So our audit presentation for our CPA firm is usually in early February. And I apologize I wasn't able to come before you last month. I was actually out of town taking a class. So I just have a few general slides for you post-audit and a couple updates of some things that have been happening that are kind of new and fun to report out on. And then I'll take a couple quick questions if that's okay. Okay, first slide, please. So I'd just like to share one of the programs that I think really makes an impact on our students, not just those that receive the funds, but also the students, the student leaders that are really being servant leaders relative to the fundraising that they're doing. So shortly after I started this role in 2011, we had a senior whose family lost their home to a house fire. And his peers wanted to raise money, but at that time there was no way for them to raise funds, there was no place for them to deposit, and no way for them to determine who would be receiving funds. So the student government president at the time approached the foundation, and we worked together to put together a collaborative agreement so that the students and the foundation both raise money. And we created this fund for students to have a one-time gift of $500, and it's for any student K through 12. This is all fundraised through cash of student government, but any student in the district that falls within this criteria. And we've had students everywhere from loss of home, we bought mattresses, we've bought winter coats, we bought personal items that replaced loss of fire, we've bought a suit for a young man to wear to his mother's funeral, we bought shoes. So there are things that there's really no other funding stream for this, so it's a really, I think, a real feel-good opportunity for our students to be able to raise funds and then determine how these funds are distributed. So next slide, please. So I just wanted to kind of give you a general overview that it was initiated in 2011-12, and the first donation was then made in 2015. It took us a while to gain some traction, but it is now a perpetual fund that's managed as part of the foundation investment portfolio. So that's pretty exciting. In addition to the student and foundation fundraising, then of course we have some interest that we're able to distribute. Next slide, please. So as of this last week, we have raised more than $55,000 for the Trojans Care Fund, and we've distributed more than $29,000 across the district since the fund's inception. So it's pretty exciting, and I think the students are pretty proud of that as well. Next slide, please. So currently, we've been using a paper application. It's worked well, but as we're realizing that we have a little bit of lost time, right? Those shotgun envelopes building to building to get all the appropriate signatures, there can be a little bit of a delay. So one of our things that we talked about this year is we really need to get that online so we can have immediate application by school counselors, immediate approval via email by building supervisors, either head teacher or principal, and then of course the student government liaison, they approve as well. So we're going to be rolling that out April 1st, which is next week. So we're hoping that will roll out well. And then another thing that we were looking at is marketing for payroll deduction program for district employees who wish to do that. So we'll be putting that together for our admin folks to take a look at and give us approval, and then we're hoping that we'll be able to initiate that July 2023. Next slide, please. So now rolling into the foundation, just the general overview and the presentation that we had last month with our audit firm. As of, just looking back to 2011, 2012, our assets at that time were just a little over $1.5 million. Next slide, please. So as of July 2022, our assets were $2.9 million. And this doesn't include the Billow estate of over $300,000 and a future gift of an additional $300,000. So you might be thinking, well, it doesn't look like you've made all that much traction. Well, keep in mind, as our CPA was explaining to me, there's quite a bit of loss that we're not going to really see bounce back until next summer because of the loss in the investment account. The vast majority of our assets are invested and they are in restricted accounts. Next slide, please. So during these years, our total educational investment to the district has been $1.65 million. And that's been in a variety of different ways. It's been teacher innovative grants, it's been student scholarships, special projects, and a few other things. So we've really been able to kind of capture need and try to backfill that need as we're able. Next slide, please. So the asset update, we've increased by 113%. Again, that does not include the Billows funds of $300,000 and the second gift. And we also have another announcement that we'll be making relative to our assets very soon. So next slide, please. So many of you know that we've received quite a few estate gifts. Some are fairly small, but still are high impact. And we've had gifts as large as $1 million coming in through our estate and plan giving program. We've recently been notified by an alum's legal counsel that we're the sole beneficiary of the balance of her estate, and we'll be able to make that announcement at the next board meeting as to the value. We still don't know yet, so we're kind of on pins and needles waiting to find out what that is. But she was very, very specific about how she wanted the funds to be used to support the district. So I think we'll all be pretty excited about that when we have more information to share. Next slide, please. So total contributions and additional special projects, $252,000. Sometimes special projects can be as small as $1,000. Sometimes we've had up to $45,000 to $50,000. So it really, again, that's another way that we like to be able to move the needle when there's a need that we can help to kind of backfill. Next slide, please. So I apologize, this is teeny tiny, but this year we've done quite a bit of outside grant fundraising, application writing. So of course you're all aware of the impact grant that was $40,000 and the Green Township STEM grant for 3 of our buildings that was $24,000. The Exchange Club gave us $1,200 plus a match for caches. And then the Chamber of Commerce Foundation, we did some EITC tech collaboration for just under $9,000. So total as of today, our outside grant fundraising that we've, funds either promises to give or in hand are over $75,000 for the year. Next slide, please. So outside grant funding pending, we applied for $3,000 for the Alexander Stewart Foundation. That was due February. We don't receive notification until June. Last week, we submitted a CDBG grant for the Stevens Outdoor Play Space for $109,000. We should hear back from that in maybe 2 weeks, I think. And so if anybody's interested in going to any of those borough meetings, please feel free to do that. And the Lions Club, we're waiting to hear back from another Trojans Care gift. So our outside grant funding pending is $117,000. I would really love to be funded at 100%. I don't know that we will be. Fingers are crossed. And lots of prayers for that too. Next slide, please. So our innovative teacher grants update, we funded 2 projects this last month. One was for Marion, New Franklin, and Stevens, a fairly new teacher, Joel Van Kampen, who was really excited to write his first grant. So I did some work with him, and we finessed his application, and I was a little nervous when I saw the title that said spike ball, because I'm thinking red rubber playground ball. We used to play dodgeball and hit each other in the face. It's not like that. It's all health oriented. And then our team of librarians at Stevens they're in the process right now of ordering a Spanish library supplement for what they have there in their building. And both of those projects were funded through the Sharp Trust funds. And then we decided to extend our online grant application until May 1st, and we have a total budget for the year of $30,000. Next slide, please. So other special events, excited to say that our annual golf tournament, May 1st, is sold out already. We're still obviously accepting sponsors, but in terms of golfers, we sold out, and we have 12 golfers on the wait list. So that's been a really exciting response to that. We're working to coordinate the leadership team for the Night of the Stars on May 22nd. That's my favorite night of the entire year. And we also have been scheduling some alumni tours. Class of 73 has picked and scheduled their date, and I'm working with the class of 78 right now to pick their date. And then we also, another way that we support the alumni efforts as a foundation is we serve as the online host for alumni groups. So most recently, the class of 1972, last fall, I ran the registration webpage for them and captured all that data and took all of their payments. And then I'm really excited about the May 20th 80th reunion for the Glee Club. I think that's going to be really exciting, and we'll be sending that information out in the next day. So we're hoping that they get a really great turnout. They're doing a t-shirt sale. For those of you who are former Glee Club members, please register online when you see that on social media. And even if you did not do Glee Club or music, if you use social media or email, or you want to text the link to all of your friends that you know who did, we want to have a great turnout for the Glee Club this year. Next slide, please. And then another thing that I enjoy doing it, even though sometimes it can be tremendously sad. One of the ways that we like to help families honor and remember their loved ones is through our In Lieu of Flowers program. So we were very blessed and just, certainly have seen the phenomenal impact that Coach Carroll had on the district. Through the number of individuals thus far, and the gifts are still coming in through our online giving portal in his honor and memory. And people have been writing some really neat handwritten notes that I'm putting together in a document to give to the family. So that's just putting that out there for folks that want to use a charity in lieu of flowers. We're always happy to accept that. Next slide, please. And that's all for now. I'm sorry I probably went over my time a little bit, but happy to take a quick question or two if anybody likes. Yes, sir.
That 300,000 was the, you said it was future, was that a future investment? You said, it was 300 and there was another 300,000 you said.
One was for special projects?
Yeah.
Or?
How does that work?
I'm sorry? Oh, the billows. Okay, thank you for clarifying that. Yeah. So we had an individual who made an estate gift of $300,000 to the foundation. She made the balance of her estate was $600,000. She gave us $300,000 and gave her surviving friend $300,000 that was put in trust, and that individual was never allowed to touch the principal. So upon this other individual's passing, we will then be receiving the second $300,000, which we will then put into our Billows investment account. Yeah, thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah, I'll just say thank you. Yeah, I think it's a great report. It's really helpful to hear all the details. I especially want to say thank you for the work on the Trojan Care Fund. I often encounter families that are in the midst of crisis and emergencies, and I think that having this kind of fund is really valuable, and I think it's good for the public just to be aware if you're in relationship with people that have great needs, have an emergency, where do you go for help? And there are a lot of different options, right? So
right.
This is not the only one. But that the school district is engaged in that kind of way, I think is really great.
It's great to
Yeah.
see the students get excited about helping others.
Yeah.
That's really, really rewarding.
Yes, does the family have to apply for it, or can a staff member or a student, for the care fund say, hey, I know of this family or this individual?
Great question, sir. So the referral can really come from anywhere in the district. Our policy is that it's either the school counselor or the social worker that complete the form. And we really do try to respect people's confidentiality. So there's as enough information that, but many times the school counselors and the social workers, they have their finger on the pulse, and they know way more than they need to put. And in my mind, if they tell me the student has them family, that there's a need, I tend to believe that. That form is then, they do need to indicate how many children are involved, what buildings, grades. Then that is signed off by the building, either the head teacher or the principal, and then that is then routed to the student government advisor. And he does an excellent job of helping the students navigate the decision making without breaching confidentiality. And then once he signs off, I get the call, and then that means that we don't give cash and we don't write checks. So we do Target gift cards, Kohl's gift cards, mattress warehouse type things. So I've met many families out to do shopping. We also, we really do try to have the counselors. I will deliver the gift cards to them directly. And then if it's a student in grades K through 8, they'll meet with the parent and have the parent sign off that they've received it. And they explain where it came from and what it's to be used for. High school students, many of them that have been in this situation, they've really kind of been their own caregiver, so to speak. So if we have a student that's in that role, we don't necessarily expect a parent to come and pick it up. We'll have a student that'll sign off that they received it.
Right, it's great to see the students giving back, and that they're blessed and they can give back to others that are less fortunate, Very
yes,
good.
Yes. And sometimes it's even something like they'll donate part of their ticket sales for their dances, or they'll do a change race at Color Day, or sometimes the student store has given a donation. So
Right.
yeah, it comes
Thank
from
you.
a variety of student-driven ways. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd also like to say that I really like to see the fundraising being done by the students and then going directly back to those in the community, because we have significant needs here in our community, and seeing it go right back to the students within the school district that really need it.
And I've been surprised at how interested the high school students are to know about the ethics and the legal ramifications of fundraising. That's been fun for me to watch. Like, they want to know how it's supposed to happen, which has been fun to be a part of. Any other
I
questions?
think I'm correct. We've had a foundation since 1991. Is that correct?
Why, yes. Why, yes,
And
ma'am.
I think it's something that needs to be known that we were one of the first.
Yes. And you won't want to toot your own horn, but I'll toot it. Toot, toot. I'll toot the family horn. The Hellman family was very instrumental in starting the first foundation. Initially, it was an advisory board of the school board, and then they realized with the lots of business savvy that the best way to do it was to be a 501c3, because just like you're seeing tonight, we can apply for other funding streams that an advisory board of a public school board can't. And so that's why we're technically a standalone organization, but we work hand in glove because we want to be able to cast the net as widely as possible. So yeah, going back to 1991, a couple years ago, Tammy and I had to pull some minutes and reading how that morphed and why they chose to do that. And the model that we use has been used all across Pennsylvania and like 7 or 8 different states. So it's kind of neat to see just paying that our history forward. Yeah. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you so much, and I'm sorry I talked so long.
No, it's
I'll
good
talk less.
Good stuff. And you said the online giving portal is available. That's just, what's the URL for that?
If you go to the foundation webpage, how to give, the easiest way is just go to district homepage. At the very bottom, it says give to the foundation, and that takes you out to our giving portal. I also create individual links for many of the different projects. Great. So I will, if it's okay, I'll send an email out when I finish to all of you with the registration link for the Glee Club. Okay.
If you could also send
Sure.
the PowerPoints.
Oh, sure. Okay.
Be great.
Absolutely. Okay. Thanks so much.
And singing in the shower doesn't count for Glee Club in lieu of.
The irony of this is for me to help with registration, I can't carry a tune in the bucket. Like when I'm singing in the car, my family will say, "Can you please stop?"
I hear that also, not about yours, but about me. All right, thank you. 5.01, the presentation for the Volvo Construction Equipment Partnership.
Hi, I'm Andrea Mills. I am the K-12 Career Readiness Coordinator, and recently we have come together with Volvo to create a partnership for our students at the high school. Next slide, please. They have an internship program that they've proposed to us, and we've kind of gone back and forth to talk about what that should look like. What students can earn would be 1.5 credits per semester. So they can earn a total of 3 credits and their elective credits for the year. They will be paid $17 an hour while they're working there. They will also receive industry recognized credentials for welding only through Volvo. That falls under the Act 158, so they can earn a piece of evidence in that regard. They can also earn additional welding and ladder industry recognized credentials through our counselors, through our SP2, which was funded. Angie Lynch helped me with that for this year. And so that's a great opportunity. And just completing the internship itself is also a piece of evidence for Act 158. So a student can get all their graduation pathway fulfillments through this internship, as well as the IRCs. Students can do this in the fall and or spring, so they can choose to do this either for one semester or for an entire year, depending on how many credits they may need. They need to be 17 or older and a senior to participate in this internship program. And they can either ride a bus and or van at designated times, or they can drive themselves. So for students that have senior privilege, some of them may choose to work longer hours and make more money during that time. Next slide, please. Students can choose to do one of the following jobs: assembly, machining, maintenance, warehouse, or welding. A lot of our students are very interested in welding at this time, and so that's a very great pull for them to see a company where they can learn this trade, especially one that has an in-house welding school in that program. Students can apply through a variety of ways. They want students to feel like it is an actual job, and it is. They're getting paid for this. So they can apply not only through Volvo's website, but through Glassdoor, Indeed, as well as LinkedIn. Students will complete an interview process with them, complete a background check, as well as a drug test. So they are going to be treated as any other employee through Volvo. There will also be weekly reflections that the students will need to complete on the Google Classroom, as well as their supervisors or mentors will be completing a bi-weekly evaluation so that we can ensure that the students are doing what they need to do at this job. Next slide, please. They've also created an externship program, and for those of you that are like, what's the difference between internship and externship? Internship is where the students are expected to actually do work. It could be paid or unpaid. Their internship is paid. But the externship portion is basically an extended job shadowing experience. So students can earn in this externship 1 credit. It's an unpaid experience, and they can earn an industry recognized credential through the SP2 program for soft skills. Students can do this only in the fall. That is when Volvo offers this program, and they need to be 17 or older as well as a senior. Students will have to drive themselves there because they do the externship from 8 to 10 in the morning. And we cannot typically get buses for that time, so they would have to drive themselves. Next slide, please. The really cool part about this experience for the students is that they get to shadow a bunch of the more like white-collar jobs for 9 weeks. So they'll get to see human resources, production, core values, logistics, Volvo Group real estate, finance, communications. This is not something that we've offered in the past for students to be able to sample, so this is a great experience for them to be able to see all of these different avenues. And then for the final 9 weeks of the semester, they get to choose a department to stay in for that remaining 9 weeks. So they get to be fully immersed in that department. They did give a disclaimer, it's subject to availability, so if everyone wants to do human resources, they cannot all do that. Students can apply the same way as they can with the internship, so Volvo's website, Glassdoor, Indeed, and LinkedIn. Students will need to, again, complete an interview process. They will need a background check as well as a drug test. Again, just as any other employee. There will be daily journals to fill out for the experience. Volvo has provided me with a packet that they typically have used in the past for this experience, and that will be also graded on the Google Classroom, as well as Volvo will collect that information as well. I will also have biweekly evaluations from their supervisor or whoever has worked with them in the past 2 weeks, just to make sure that things are going okay as well. Next slide, please. Volvo has some very nice perks. So one perk is that students in the internship, they have to have steel-toed boots in order to work in the facility, and they get a steel-toed boot voucher provided to them. It may not cover the whole cost, but it definitely covers a majority of the cost for them. So for our students that may struggle financially to purchase them, that's an excellent perk for them. They also have a lot of extra facilities that the students are able to use for free. They have an on-site gym and fitness center. They actually have a trainer there for part of the time that the students can utilize, so some people can go on their lunch break and use the gym. They have free recreational spaces outside, such as outdoor walking tracks, fitness equipment, basketball goals, and sand volleyball courts. They also have access to a cafeteria, which is huge, and it's lovely. It's very affordable, but the students would need to pay for their own lunch if they choose to go there. If students are in a free and reduced lunch situation, they can pick up a bag lunch before they leave the school. They do have mentorship opportunities that they highlighted with various stakeholders. So if a student wants to shadow or form a relationship with someone in a specific department, they are more than willing to help them do that, even if that's not where they are currently working. They're very much about investing in the employee, so they're taking time to invest in our students. They have a lot of hands-on training and development. They also promote community volunteerism, so our students would be involved in the Volvo Lights program. They have a wellness coordinator as a resource for the students, a variety of lunch and learns that the students can participate in, as well as they can participate in the employee appreciation events. Next slide, please. I put a little bit of Q&A on here. We actually had Volvo come out to present to our students just to generate some interest and to see how many students would be interested in this program. And 55 students attended this program. So they're all juniors at this time. It was a mixture of students that wanted to do the internship or externship. We had a lot of students, again, interested in the welding program specifically. How many jobs will they have? We are waiting to hear back from Volvo at this time. They have to project how many openings they may have for the fall. So I'm hoping to hear back from them this week. They are more selective than some of our other internships because they just don't have as many openings. Again, they invest a lot in their employees as well as the students, and they want to make sure that they have a great experience while they're there. How much will this cost? Volvo will pay half of the cost to transport the students to the facility. The total cost will be determined by our transportation department depending on the number of students attending. So that could be the difference between a van or a bus. How does this compare to other internships that are currently available? I do have an internship comparison chart linked into the presentation. Do you all have access to the presentation? You do?
I was able to get to it.
Okay. So if anyone has any questions about some of the other internships that we offer versus Volvo, I'd be happy to answer those questions at the end. Next slide, please. And then I thought about next steps. So after board approval, we will receive links for students to begin applying to Volvo and hopefully can get this program up and running for the fall. I would like to plan 2 different preparation sessions. One would be an application assistance session. I found a lot of students have trouble with some of the language used in the applications or aren't sure what they should fill out or what they have to fill out versus what's optional. They think everything has to be filled out. So I would hold a session with those students so that they could all fill out the applications at the same time and seek assistance if they have any questions. I would also like to set up a mock interview session as well. Before community members would come in and help with the mock interviews, I'd like to do a brief presentation about how you prepare for an interview as well as different pieces of etiquette involved in an interview. And then they can go to these community members that will be at caches and participate in mock interviews and receive some feedback from those individuals, especially since this is going to be a much more selective process and they will have to apply and go through that interview process. Then students will interview with the Volvo personnel and they will receive an offer pending on their onboarding process or rejection letters. Onboarding process for Volvo will include the background check, a drug test, and any other documents that need to be signed by parents or guardians. And then at the beginning of the next school year, I will have a meeting at the beginning of the year with students regarding expectations and assignments needed for the internship or externship program. And then the students will begin. I talked to Volvo about the start date for the students, and they say within the first few days of school, the students would be able to start that internship. Any questions?
I don't have a question, but I'm really thrilled with what you're doing. And you used a term that I know what it meant, but I think there's probably people who don't know what senior privilege is. Could you explain what senior privilege is?
Yes, absolutely. So senior privilege is where a student has enough credits to graduate, especially, let's say, maybe they only need an English class or a gym credit at the end. So they might only have 2 classes that they're taking, and then they're allowed to leave for the remainder of the school day. So for students that can use that opportunity to work instead of not, then that's a great benefit to our students.
A benefit to everyone.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Dr. Diller?
Just questioning. I think it is very important that we offer the transportation so these kids can get there. Do we offer it in the others as well, or?
We do.
Okay.
We do.
That's great.
Especially since that's a major barrier.
Yeah,
for
that is
lot
a
of our
major barrier.
students.
I just was curious if we were offering it at the
Yeah.
other places as well.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll just say thank you. This is exciting
Yes.
for our students.
You're welcome. And
And I
hopefully
guess my
there will be
question
another
would be,
coming soon.
at what point do students begin to hear that this is an offering, for instance, at 7th grade, 8th grade, whenever they should be getting their credits so that they would be eligible for this? Is there adequate awareness of the importance of their attendance and passing their courses and so on, so that they have this opportunity, not just here at Volvo, but just in general.
Absolutely. I can speak for the high school level because the counselors are all fully aware. They know that their students will be getting these opportunities at some point, so they advertise and they will start talking about it in 9th grade, some of these opportunities. And I know that in the past they've even had students that are participating in the programs come and speak to the younger groups of students. I cannot speak for the middle school level, but I do believe that they know that these options are out there.
I'll just add that this year they had the middle schools come up from 8th grade, and when the counselors took them through the school and things, they did portray the other network that we have, but also Volvo as a potential Costa Academy and things like that we have for them to look forward to in the future. So they started doing that this year with the middle school students. Good question.
Now, what if a student goes and then things do not work out? Can is there a list then, a waiting list that a student can get in, or that they're just going to have to wait till the next time around?
Typically, we wait until the next semester because there are other internships that they can also apply for as well, but typically we only go by semester. So if they don't get in the first round, then they'll have to wait for the spring semester to reapply.
Okay, so if someone drops out for whatever reason, there's no one to fill the gap right then.
Well, and it also depends on when they drop out
right.
as well, since we're assigning credits to this too.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I'd just like to say thank you to Mrs. Mills. This process started about 8 years ago with Volvo, and then it fell off, and then the other network really came on strong, and when they heard that the 18 barrier was broken by the other company, they wanted to know how. And I just appreciate your work with them. You really brought it home for these kids, and I think you added some additional things with this one that we don't have with the other one as well. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So then the next step will be an agreement, right? Or
Yes. Yeah. So we were waiting to present it
Sure.
to the board before we moved forward formally. Okay.
Well, we didn't have a discussion, but I haven't heard anybody that spoke negatively about it, so just coordinate then with Mr. Whitman, and we'll get that on I would say, just for timing, given we have had some discussion here, I don't know that it has to go to a CAL for discussion. We could probably just bring it on as a separate item on the upcoming agenda whenever you're ready.
Okay.
Okay.
Sounds great. Thank you.
I didn't see any objections to that either, so we'll go with that. Great. Thank you. All right, members of the audience invited to comment on agenda items. I have two individuals that indicated a desire to comment. Mrs. Jordan on 801 and 802.
This is to the school board. Item 802. Superintendent search didn't have to be placed on tonight's agenda. You forced a man to make a difficult choice of pulling his name off the table because he was actually doing a wonderful job as our acting superintendent. I watched as you were punitive with Dion Betts and me. I draw the line at you being punitive to Kurt Whitman because he dared to spend needed money on the students. 3 adults were in your crosshairs. I don't care about me because I'm not an employee in this school district. I can speak my mind openly, and I do. But you have made it impossible for employees to speak their minds. You are a board of 10, not 9, with a superintendent having the 10th important voice. I'm going to request one of two things of you all tonight. You either vote no to this agenda item, expenditure, and throw your support behind Kurt Widman, or Mark Scher asks for this agenda item to be removed from the agenda. Mark Scher then allows a formal vote for this action to happen. Now, Mark Scher knows what I mean here. Let's see how much solidarity you have for not only Kurt Widman, but for the rest of the administration, teacher, and support staff here too. Finally, I'm going to fax this statement of mine to you, to all 17 schools, asking all the principals and their staff members to read my open statement to you. You can't stop me from doing it either. Now, the other issue applies to 8.0, the other issue. The emails and the texts. I put in a right to know. I was denied it, okay? I hope those emails and those, when you do the policy, now I'm talking off, I'm a little nervous right now. When you do this policy, it favors the staff and not board members. I'm worried about how certain board members are treating the staff here. I do not want lawsuits anymore. And you may have one with me, so be careful. Be very careful. I want to know, Mark, how I can do the survey since you canceled me out. How?
Thank you.
Your attorney got an email from me today.
Okay, next up, Mr. Haydock.
I'm Mike Haydock. I'm happy to be here. And you really don't have to be a rocket scientist to understand why politics are so distasteful to so many. When biases and egos get in the way of governing and trust is lost, nothing good comes of it. Personally, I believe that the way any honest institution regains or rebuilds trust is with a healthy dose of sunshine. What I mean by that, of course, is transparency. Let the public be privy to your discussions, deliberations, and decisions. And of course, there will be times when the utmost confidence is needed to protect privacy, contractual, medical, and legal matters. Furthermore, a board member commented in a recent meeting that there was a lot of inaccurate information on social media pertaining to the superintendent search. I'd say if there was more transparency in that matter, there may have been less inaccuracy in the postings. Why couldn't the public see the kinds of questions you ask candidates? What kind of picture did this board paint about what was expected of a potential superintendent? This leads me to item 801, revision of policy 800, operations. First read. First, I noticed that on the agenda, the attached policy is entitled Operations. I wonder why it wasn't listed by its title, Record Retention and Destruction, which is what it is. But this is where it gets interesting and worthy of transparency. I find it hard to believe that a video recording of these meetings with a high-end technology capturing every moment is intended to be erased once the meeting minutes are published. Why? Is it really that expensive these days to store public-facing information on the cloud? Is it really cheaper to have a full-time staff person compile written minutes? And do written minutes capture the full fidelity of these meetings? The emotions expressed, the body language, and the fact that the public is participating so fully? I think not. And to wrap it up, I wanted to actually look at the minutes of previous meetings to see if they reflected my experience. Alas, I couldn't find one. I scoured every nook and cranny of the website, searched high and low. Not one could I find, so I sent a question to the point of contact this morning. Haven't heard back yet. board members, retain the YouTube videos of these meetings permanently. No one believes that the written minutes are more accurate than what we see and hear with our own eyes and ears.
Thank you. I'll read through again. Okay, that's all that I have. Okay. Is it, oh, it's back there? Okay. Just your name then, please.
My name is Curtis Schaup, 1096 Hollywell Ave. I'm speaking here on the agenda item 8.01. I sent an email to you all this morning. I just wanted to read that for the record this evening. I'm concerned about the revision of policy number 800 on the agenda for tonight's meeting. As was stated in the last meeting about the liability of ADA compatibility of the live YouTube videos, I was able to view a video and click on the closed captioning button, which I could see word for word what was being said from the last board meeting. And I believe that would cover any liability for ADA compliance. In addition, I think it would also be beneficial to our Spanish-speaking community members to have videos translated into Spanish so they could also be a part of our meetings and not be left out. This current board has talked several times about transparency, and an action like removing meetings from YouTube, to me, it looks like you might be hiding something from the community. And as a parent and a building substitute for CASD, I find it beneficial to go back and watch meetings that I have missed. And I also go back and watch meetings that I'm in person just to make sure that I heard someone say something the way that they said it correctly. Is this a financial issue to keep the videos? And also, I'd be a proponent of keeping the videos 6 months to a year if there isn't enough storage space. Thank you.
Thank you. And thanks for bringing up the other sheet, and that covers the list. All right, thank you, everyone. Move to the consent agenda items. Are there any items that should be pulled for separate discussion? Okay, hearing none, may I have a motion to approve the items on the consent agenda?
Move to approve.
Thank you. Okay, and we can just do a verbal again. All those in favor of approving the items that are on the consent agenda, say aye.
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 Thank you. All those opposed, say nay. Okay, consent agenda items pass. 8.01, may I have a motion to approve the revision of policy 800 operations on the first read?
Move to approve.
Okay, thank you. And a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you. All right, discussion. Anybody on the phone want to go first on discussion?
Yeah, I'll go first.
Okay.
This is the record retention item, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. I know as a board, this has been discussed at previous times as well. It's a new board now, so it's fine to have another discussion. I'm not in favor of the elimination of the records. I'm willing to accept the consequences of having the recording out there. One of those consequences, is and can be that how someone can take a 10-second clip out of a 3-minute comment and they just play 10 seconds of it. And that's a disadvantage, but you know, being a volunteer elected public official, you know, it's one of those disadvantages we have, just like executive session, right? We got to listen to some false statements that are made, and we can't reply to them because it is executive session content. And you know, again, I use that again. This is another disadvantage of our role as volunteer elected officials. But I'm not in favor of elimination of the policy. I'm willing to, you know, accept and live by everything that gets recorded that I say. Granted, sometimes we all have regrets, and that's just human nature. But I'm willing to accept fault, and usually I'll be the first to admit it before someone else does. But I'm not in favor of elimination of records. I think out of everything that happened with COVID, I think maybe YouTube video might be about the only good thing that came out of the darn COVID scenario is, you know, better historical records.
I'll go on. Sorry. I wanted to go on and basically it's along the same lines. I had this discussion in my shop with quite a few different customers of mine, and one of the things that we talked about was we've got a larger population of Hispanic speaking students, and a lot of their parents may not be very well versed, and they may have to depend on the children to break things down to them. I think with the closed captioning and everything else, this gives everybody a stake in listening into the meetings and participating, and even pulling up stuff later on if they're relying on the kids to tell them. I know I wasn't always the best kid and didn't always bring home the notes that I was sent home to give to my mom. That I also believe that, you know, later on, I think that these meetings need to be available to the public so they can see, you know, how we voted. Not only how we voted, to be honest with you, our body language, because I know that 70% of our communication is not what we say, but how we act and our facial expressions and how we appear and present ourselves. And I think that that's vitally important. I made this point the last time. You know, I can say, you know, Ms. Gogler, are you going to give me that $500? And she goes, sure, I'm going to give you that $500. We all know that she's not giving me the $500, but in transcript, it looks like she owed me $500. Things get lost in translation, so I'm for keeping it as long as possible. Not for me, not just a year. I think it needs to go down in historical context, and we're going to, as board members, we're going to have to stand on it or you know, be indicted on it either way.
All right, so let me just add some clarification and some points. So what we're technically approving is the policy. Part of the policy is an administrative document called a records retention schedule. It covers a whole variety of stuff, such as how long student records are going to be kept, how long, you know, graduation transcripts, you know, it covers all of those things. And I wanted to highlight for our discussion that one of those items was, in fact, the videos and board minutes and board documents. So while we don't technically or typically approve the administrative documents, I think we certainly have to weigh in on and set our expectations of what we want the retention to be of these documents. So I was having a brief sidebar here with Mr. Z. I wanted to ask the question, so if we keep the video, does that mean we technically have to approve that then as an official document? He said, no. Then I said, well, if we have the video, why do we need written transcript? You know, and the answer is because it's statutorily required. Mm-hmm. Okay, so we have the cost then of somebody transcribing the minutes. Another option is you just go out to YouTube and you download the transcript. We could do that. We could save the cost. That's another option. The thing about that though is then we'd have to remember that as we approve, if we were to go that route, as we approve the minutes, it would be the transcription of everything that we've said for the last 2 hours. And we would have to read through and say, oh, no, wait, YouTube it was collecting my voice and then going through its algorithms, its speech recognition, did it actually transcribe what I said correctly? So we'd have to keep that in mind, or we can just say that our official document remains meeting minutes. As far as the duration of how long we would keep these, when I look at the record retention schedule, I just see this as part and parcel of the overall schedule. What's an appropriate amount of time to keep what's considered a record? I don't think any document should be kept, whether it's online or meaning like videos or transcripts. I don't think they should be kept in perpetuity. I think there's just a general hygiene that should be done to get rid of things that really are no longer needed. I would say then let's just move ahead a couple years. Do we really need to keep the videos from 5 years ago? I don't know. I think what I'm hearing though is that we should come up with what we think is an acceptable duration, 6 months, 12 months, something like that, and keep them open. Keep them up for that time frame, although we might not choose to keep them after that, at least out the gate. And I know Mr. Norcross mentioned about COVID, that this is one of the things. I mean, we look at the minutes and we're like, it doesn't really capture everything. Well, it's what we did for decades. It's generally the document that the minutes aren't a transcription. It's a reflection of the gist of that particular discussion.
Yeah, I think of minutes as a summary.
Yeah,
or
kinda
like
a
my
highlights. Yeah,
high school physics teacher used to say, clear, concise, and complete.
Yeah. So the other thing that I'll add that I think Ms. Walkemuth, I tried to go out and just pull some analytics, but apparently you got to be the owner of the videos.
Okay.
So some numbers that she showed just to help guide, we say we can go back and look at them, et cetera. She pulled and provided data from March 22nd, 2022 board meeting. In that time frame, there on that video, as of right now, 284 views. So, and between March 22nd, the last view was on May 23rd. So roughly 2 months. No views of that video since then. And the average duration of the views is 16 minutes. So, yeah.
There have been times where I have wanted to go back and view a video just kind of for practical reasons, like as a board member. How did that discussion go? And I haven't been able to find the videos. So I looked, knowing that we had this discussion coming, I think it was yesterday, and we only have 7 that are visible for the public currently, right? And so I think we're currently on some kind of cycle where they're being phased out. And so your dates make sense. 2 months later, they're not available, so then there's not going to be any views after that, is the way it currently is.
Can look into it. I didn't go back and diving. I just picked a recent one and then personally tried to do the analytics. But if they get, I don't want to say shadowed or hidden, but if they're just not presented because of whether that's a setting that we do or an algorithm that just doesn't present it, it picks other more recent stuff. We can look into that. I mean, even if hypothetically we say we want to keep it for 6 months, someone should be able to easily find it for 6 months or 12 months or whatever. I'll just say the other video, though, was October, again, a point of reference, October 25th, so a little bit more recent. Again, a little over 2 months, so the last view was January 2nd, so 2 months and a week, and 313 views, an average duration of 15 minutes, 51 seconds. So people are generally, those that are watching it, go out and will grab, here's one for 17 seconds, 4 seconds, that probably was just a misclick. But to your point, though, people are going out and saying, I want to look at something specific as a reference.
I would like to compare these videos to what I use a lot, and that being historical newspapers that are on the website of the Franklin County Historical Society. It used to be that there was a newspaper reporter at every board meeting, and there was a lengthy newspaper article about the board meeting. I can go back and look at a board meeting information from the newspaper from any time in who knows how many years ago, you know, because all you have to do is plug in the topic that you want to look at and so on. I personally think that 50 years from now, you know, without the newspapers the way they used to be, there's not going to be that ease of getting information about what really happened years ago. And I personally don't have a problem with indefinite keeping of these YouTube videos, because newspaper articles have been kept indefinitely. As I say, I just don't see it being a problem.
My other last comment was, I understand about the Spanish. I didn't see where YouTube has an option where it does the translate on the fly, like the closed captioning thing. All right, so let me repeat. YouTube has a closed captioning. I didn't see an option where you could have translation into Spanish at the same time.
I had one of my customers who's Puerto Rican on Saturday pulled it up and
Again?
started playing it in the barber shop. And I was like, oh, wow, okay.
Cool. I couldn't find it, so
well,
that's pretty neat.
He's Hispanic, maybe he's a little more versed.
Yeah. I would just say, if we, and it doesn't sound like that we're going to go on this, but obviously if there's a point where we start to print out minutes or print out items from there, down the road, I wouldn't want to be approving minutes in Spanish because I don't know that language. So it's a consideration, but I think it's good informationally to have, if that option's available for translation, you know, by Google or YouTube, whomever, then it's a great feature to have.
I think there's still some value in the minutes as we currently do them, because it's a
Well,
summary.
we have to.
Well, but I
your
would,
point,
I'm
versus
saying I
transcript,
wouldn't want the
dump.
transcript to become the minutes.
Yeah.
I think that they serve a different you can easily peruse the minutes and get a feel for the major points of discussion.
Okay. Other thoughts? Anyone else on the phone? Real quick.
I would like to make one more, if that's, I think we're right now we're in one of the more important factors for me anyway. I think we're in the middle right now of our country's in the throes of what historically truly happened in this nation. Historically, the way things have been written and the way things have been documented and so on. I just looked at a newspaper article about Black Wall Street, and the article said two white men were killed during race riot. Didn't mention anything else about, and I'm saying that, the reason why I'm saying that is, even with the reporting of someone, there's one-sidedness, lopsidedness, or what have you. This is our voices. This is what we've said. They can hear the tonality of it. They can see exactly what we said. So later on down the road, you know, Grandpappy, why'd you say this? Why'd you do that? Why'd you know, it's all right there, and it can't be misconstrued or whatever else. When it's somebody else writing it for us or whatever, that's one thing. When it's our voice, when it's our words, and we said it, and our body language and everything else, you know, I think that that's vitally important, so.
Yes. Whenever you get the mic on, go ahead, Mrs. Smith.
Okay. Well, I believe that we need to keep the YouTube videos. I mean, and definitely I'm right there with Faye, because if you don't, I don't like to see history erased in any way. And like Faye said, it's like, well, we don't even have the newspapers anymore to get the information right now. So, and I mean, whether you like or you don't like what was said, but it still should be open for the public at any given time to check what our board meeting was all about. You know, it's freedom of speech, and what the people have to say, we need to listen, and whether we take it or we don't. But you know, but we have to give that option. And I know people like to go back on videos. Well, you know, what was said on comments, you know, with the public comment, or even what the board members had said. And then I know there's times that I go back and just trying to find stuff on things from the board docs. It's like, when was that? But for some reason, when you watch a video, it's like that sticks in your mind, the time period. And I would just like to see it stay. I don't want to see any of this erased, but I could see where records need to go, old records, you know, that been hanging around, the IRS is 7 years. I don't know, maybe we should hang on to like our records for 7 years and then like destroy them. But I know that it all takes up space, but I just don't want to see the videos go away.
Okay. What I'm hearing then in general is the board's direction is to keep the videos, not to establish I guess a destruction or an erasure period. So page 8 of the attachment that's with the policy, and the attachment is the model records retention schedule, presently has in there recordings of board meetings, digital and or tape recordings of school board and designated committee meetings. We have retain only until board minutes are officially approved. That will have to be updated, because it's an attachment to the policy. And I know we're actually approving the policy, but just for the formality of it, since it's attached to the document, I'd propose that we send this back to committee, or table it, whatever. But we don't proceed tonight. We get the document updated to reflect that the videos will be retained, and then bring it back, whether that's at the next board meeting in April 11th or the following, whichever cycle it comes around to.
Sounds good.
All right, and just for clarity, I think we're going to want to look at, because that table says digital and or taped recordings of school board and designated committee meetings. So we might want to split that out to say specifically video recordings, as opposed to the digital recordings that Mrs. Stauffer has collected up here. I don't see there's a need to keep that also. So we'll probably just ask administration to split that in the record retention schedule. All right, so we have a motion and a second. I don't have my cheat sheet here. We can just move to table it.
Dr. Short.
Yes, go ahead.
Dr. Short. Just one additional comment, and in your original explanation or description, you had mentioned about there was some concern with whether it is compliant with the Disability Act, or can you elaborate on that? And is there something we should also do in policy that we can address that? But you had mentioned there was a legal concern that we're compliant with the Disability Act.
Yeah, I don't know that I did, but the topic generally, I think, was about making sure that Americans with the ADA and the closed captioning part of it, I think, was the concern. Like if you're deaf,
It's not just closed, it's
audio closed captioning here. You want to?
Who was it? Mr. Norcross?
Yeah, Mr. Norcross.
Mr. Norcross, this is Bill Z. So, yeah, it's a web accessibility issue. It's not just closed captioning. It's if you think of, the multitude of disabilities that would affect interacting with any sort of media source. Just making sure, again, and districts have addressed this often through their websites. That's why you don't see it, but there are devices individuals would use to engage with the website, and you have to make sure that that website is constructed in such a way that allows for that. Some of that may be done through YouTube. Districts use different platforms and how they share those videos. Not all use YouTube to do that. So they may have some of those addressed, but I think when it was raised last time, it wasn't so much that there was liability for the district there. It's just something you would need to think about depending upon the medium you were going to use to keep those electronic recordings of your meetings.
Should there be some statement that it's not an official record, as the minutes are official records?
Absolutely, because the law is very clear. You're required to have written minutes, so it would never substitute unless there's a change to the statute.
Well, but if I'm not wrong, a permanent record, that being the minutes, if we somehow didn't have them because somebody didn't like what was in the minutes and they throw them away, that would be a violation.
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, the videos are not official in any way. And if somehow, whether it be because of internal personnel who destroyed, whether it be because of some cloud collapse, I think it maybe needs to be clear that it is not an official document, so that there's no question that.
Yeah, I mean, clarity is always, in my view, better, but the reason it would never be an official document is you would never approve it here.
Right.
So when we come to this meeting like we did tonight and approve those written minutes, they become the minutes once the board, this body, approves them. So unless you were bringing the written minutes in addition to the recordings and approving it by this body, they wouldn't be the minutes. So, but I don't disagree with you. I think it's always good to note with something that this is what this is and it's not this. I think that would be useful as well if you're going to keep them that way.
Looks like the cheat sheet says we can use refer to committee. So we have a motion to refer this back to policy committee.
So moved.
All right. Second, okay, and it says a debate, so we can have debate. Any debate on moving this back to policy committee? Okay, and then it says majority vote to send it back to policy committee. I don't think we need a roll call vote. So all those in favor of sending this back, sending 8.01 back to policy committee, say aye.
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 Thank you. Opposed, say nay. Okay, 8.01 will go back to policy committee to address the items we discussed. 8.02, may I have a motion to, hold on, waiting for it to load. Motion to direct administration to enter into an agreement with one of the proposed service providers as determined by the board during tonight's meeting.
Move to approve.
Thank you. And a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. Mrs. Smith got it in just before you, Mr. McKee.
Ladies before gentlemen.
Oh, you're so sweet.
All right, so let's open for discussion just as available for the public. We received, I think this was outlined last time, we received 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 or so or whatever requests. We sent out requests for proposals for this service, received them back, we reviewed them, and wanted to bring forward 3 that we have listed here tonight. PSBA Human Resource Services, and that was at $15,000. Templeton Advantage at a cost of $20,000 plus traveling and printing, et cetera. And Richard Fry, Dr. Richard Fry at a cost of $20,000 plus post-service mentor services. So general discussion so that we can arrive at one of these 3. Anybody have thoughts on the 3?
think the availability of the transition services with Templeton Advantage at no additional cost makes that a preferred selection.
Other thoughts?
I felt Templeton was the most thorough of the three when you looked at what all they offered.
Yeah, I'll mention on that.
Go ahead.
I'll mention on that front too. One of the things I appreciate about Templeton that I would encourage our board to take advantage of is that he offers a board governance, self-assessment, and professional development tool that we can utilize as a team. And I think for where we're at right now, that would be a really good move for us to take advantage of that on the front end of this process. So if we go with him, I'll recommend that as well.
Anything over on the right side? All right, on the phone, any thoughts, comments?
Dr. Shore, this is Ed. It's been discussed about a national search, and it's some confusing comments publicly made by some colleagues about a national search and local. But anyway, national search, I think Tom Templeton would be the one.
Okay. Thank you. I'll pause just for if there's anything else on the phone. Okay, then I'll wrap it up. My kind of reflections on the three that were that we had dove deeper into. PSBA, we know that they provide a wealth of services available for districts and school boards. They provided 2 tiers of different options and services that went with each of the tiers. I think they would be fine. I just understand that there's some recent changes in personnel there. We know that Mr. Templeton and his services have been, I know, around for a long time, has received really good remarks and feedback from those that have interacted with him. So I like the stability that Mr. Templeton has. And then Mr. Fries also was I think was strong, good, just at a higher cost, overall cost. Yeah. So from what I'm hearing from tonight, and my 2 cents added, it sounds like we are landing on going with Templeton Advantage. So I just for the record, or whatever, I see heads nodding up and down. On that, anybody on the phone feel otherwise to proceed with having administration move ahead with Templeton Advantage?
Yeah, everything I read about Templeton was positive as well, so I'm on board with it.
Okay, great. So we've narrowed it down. We'll proceed with Templeton, ask administration to move ahead with contract with Templeton Advantage to get this next phase moving. Okay, I've been advised, take a vote since the motion. So it's not really an amendment, but vote to move ahead with Templeton? Yeah. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Mr. Raber?
Yes.
I'm sorry, Tammy, I'll let you do the calling. Sorry. Didn't mean to I'll stay in my lane.
Okay.
So.
Well, then I'll start with Mr. Raber.
Okay.
Yes.
Dr. Scher?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Dr. Diller?
Yes.
Ms. Gogler?
Yes.
Mr. Leonards?
Yes.
Mr. McKee?
Yes.
And Mr. Norcross?
Yes.
Motion passes 9-0.
Okay, thank you, and thanks for the side coaching, keeping it proper. All right, 9.01, motion to approve the expulsion of 11th grade student for 1 year. May I have a motion for that?
Move to approve.
Thank you, Mrs.
Second.
Smith. Second, thank you. And we've had the material available to us. I think there's not any questions. Otherwise, it'd obviously be executive session, but I think we're okay. All right, then all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, say nay. Motion is passed. We have a motion for personnel, to approve personnel actions as presented.
Move to approve.
Thank you. In a second?
Second.
Any discussion on the questions on personnel items? Ms. Clever, anything you wanted to call out? Just throwing it out. Okay, hearing no questions. All those in favor of the personnel?
I have a question.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
Yeah, there's substitute listed as hourly wage of $294. I believe that should be on the daily column. Is that? Yeah. So I just think everybody knows that, but for the record, we're not paying anybody $294 per hour.
All right.
Yeah, I
so
apologize for that. So if the board is okay, we will go ahead and make that correction. And
it's for 20 and
get that
21.
attached.
Okay. Do you know what is it? Is that supposed to be like 29.43 or what's the? You know, off the top.
Daily rate.
Yeah, the amounts are correct, Dr. Schur. It's just the daily rate.
All right, right. Got it. It should be in the daily column, not the hourly column.
Correct.
Okay. Everybody clear on that?
My apologies.
Okay. All clear on it. Thank you. Any other questions? All right. So will you just make that adjustment and then we're okay reloading that so it's available to board docs? But we'll approve based on that correction. Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Okay, that passes. Thank you. Then we have committee reports. Just kind of, I think, start on the right since it's the last meeting of the month. Mr. McKee,
No, sir.
Okay. Ms. Smith, good. We'll come to the phone next. Mr. Norcross, any committee reports or updates?
Okay, yeah, sure. Franklin County Career Tech Center, two big items. One, and we'll be hearing more about this probably in the near future, there's going to probably be a roof project over at the Career Tech Center over on the old wing. It's going to be over $1 million, 1.2 range. So Mr. ROTC is looking at the financing options, but that will have to come back to Chambersburg Board, just the way the Career Tech works, that each, when we go out to borrow, and the way that is set up, each of the sending districts also has to vote. So we'll have more information on that, the roof project and the financing and the vote at a future meeting. The other part, Mr. ROTC and Mr. Miller went over the budget. The budget went up this year at Career Tech, and I don't remember the number right offhand. It was somewhere north of 4% for the year. And before anyone falls out of their chair, I want to put that in a little more context. And that context being, if you look at Career Tech budget over the past 8 years, the annual increase, I believe, has been 1.72%. So yes, this year is a large increase, the largest we've seen in a long time. But if you spread it out over 8 years, what we've done the previous 7 years has been very minimal. And it's still a pretty darn good, I'd ask anyone to find a public education institution that can say 8 years, their average increase has only been 1.72%. I'm not sure if Mr. ROTC has gotten that to our business office yet, but it is forthcoming for review, as well as a timeline for our board to vote to approve that. And one sidebar of that, there'll be details that Chambersburg's share is going up this year, and that just has to do with the calculation of the 3-year ADM. 3 years ago, we had a low number versus what we have in this current year, so that shifts the weighting around. I believe our total increase this year was in the $70,000-$80,000 range for year over year. But last year we were down; it was down $40,000, and it's just a function of the mathematics calculation with the enrollment and the 3-year average. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Leonards.
Yes, our next Finance Committee meeting will be held on the 5th of April. That's all.
I think it's next Wednesday, right? At 6 o'clock?
Correct.
And is it going to be, it'll still be here? Okay, so the next will be vacated after that, but at the 7th, okay. All right, Ms. Gagler.
Yeah, just to expand on Ed's information from the Career Tech meeting, 40.15% of the students who go to the Career Tech Center are from Chambersburg, and that results in the portion of the operating expenses being paid by our district being that 40.15%, and it's a slight increase of 0.53%. Enrollment at the Career Center is at an all-time high, and all of their available slots, except for a very small number, have been filled with the students who have applied on their first choice applications, and they anticipate that all of the slots will be full very soon. The early childhood education program has been in existence for 2 years. Next year it will have a full 3-year group of students, and it's a very high interest area. There's going to be a new offering called Essential Skills that's being developed, and that course will provide opportunities for job skills that are needed for transition into post-secondary employment, and there'll be certifications that will assist in the graduation pathways for students who are in that program, and that'll be implemented in 2023 24 school year. There's a program in heavy equipment training that's being explored. There was also a survey that was done by the state, and the surveyors were very impressed with the program of study there, and referred to the sustainable growth, the workforce standards that the students get, and so on. That was an approved program evaluation that's done every 5 years. And they had quite a few commendations regarding the facilities and the school culture and the availability of the standards and so forth. The virtual platform that they presented their information on that survey was created by Tim Byers, one of the instructors at the Career Tech Center, and Dr. Leslie Schumann. And the surveyors commended the platform that they used, and actually are taking it back to the Department of Education to hopefully be used by other career tech centers. And so those two individuals need to be commended for the innovative program that they prepared their survey on.
Thank you, Mrs. Goffman. Yes, and that's a part of the budget that this is expanding programs out there. This isn't just same old program, more cost. It's expanding programs as well. Thank you so much, Mrs. Goffman.
Yeah, the heavy equipment program sounds pretty cool. If they get it going. All right, anything else?
No.
Okay, Mr. Walker?
Transportation, we're in the middle of contracts, and we're looking forward to meeting in some common ground and getting things moving forward.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Diller?
Yeah, we met on Monday, this past Monday, for actually yesterday, for curriculum instruction and technology. That was yesterday. And we looked at the proficiency reports for reading And we're going to be looking at those more to determine staffing needs that have implications for the budget. And the district will be hosting a 5-week secondary summer program for students to do credit recovery for courses that they failed during the school year. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Raver?
Yeah, I'll just follow up with Dr. Diller's comments and just mention the scores that we saw were encouraging. We're not where we want to be in terms of pandemic recovery, but we are certainly making tremendous progress. And so that's really exciting to see. That feels like many of our students are back on track more than, we made substantial improvements. And looking forward to end of the year results as well. So, yeah.
Great.
That's it.
Okay.
And for that, we need to commend our teachers.
Absolutely.
You said teachers, it reminded me, I was like, oh, that's right, I guess the students met their, met the quota, the required time frame. We thank them in hindsight for coming and attending tonight. 12.01, members of the audience invited to comment on non-agenda items. I have one individual that's indicated desire to do so, Mrs. Jordan.
Before I start, I heard Mrs. Gogler say that the career tech has implemented only 2 years ago the early childhood development program, correct?
That's correct.
Well, guess what? My daughter was in that program back in the 90s. So I'm shocked that they only instituted it 2 years ago. But anyway, quote, "It has come to our attention that your ongoing mass mailings of voluminous communication to the school district personnel with no legitimate purpose is disruptive to the orderly operations of the district." From a letter dated February 23rd to me. On February 14th and 16th, 3 RTKs were sent to Mrs. Cleaver asking for emails and texts from specific board members to Kurt Widman, Tamara Stoffer, Mark Long, and Ed Peters. Funny how 1 week later this letter arrives in U.S. mail to me, and while I got this mail, I was in South America. So, anyway, just how much micromanaging is going on by board members in the daily lives of the district employees instead? That's what I want to know. When I receive an email from a former district employee citing a board member has requested the use of very expensive school equipment and his being micromanaged by board members in the past, let's not make this about me. Let's make this about you and you and you. Where's Mrs. Dr. Diller? I've come to too many board meetings to only hear several of you make these meetings about you versus making these meetings about the students and staff. Translation, a sign of a dysfunctional school board. Finally, there is this which I recently wrote to a former board member in the school district in a private Facebook message. Norcross is the worst board member that I've ever witnessed in my lifetime. And some parents thought Kevin Mintz was a problem. My problem was I listened to the parents versus listening to my heart. Kurt Widman made me realize that I needed to listen to my heart. That's why I'm so grateful to this man. Thank you. Now, how many of you are going to see Marjorie Taylor Greene this week? I watch social media. I'm not happy she's coming here. So I said, the woman who visits the guilty in jail and she's an avowed
Miss-
racist.
Mrs. Jordan, what does that have to do with?
I'm
with-
just saying
with-
my part of it.
I say with-
She's
with
not a
respect to
role model. I
board
watch
actions.
social media, and
Okay.
I know certain board members might be there.
Okay, that still doesn't have business with what, okay, well, you're past your time. You're, right. Okay, thank you. Sure.
I apologize, I think this might be an agenda item pertaining to, and I may have this mischaracterized in some way, so please clarify, that there's an opportunity to award degrees, high school diplomas to veterans, honorary discharge veterans of World War II, Vietnam, and Korea. And I think that's great. It's probably awarding a diploma that really doesn't mean anything in terms of a person getting a job, like having satisfied a requirement to get into college or anything like that. So it's, I guess, just an honorary diploma. If it's not honorary and it's a legitimate diploma, then I suggest expanding that opportunity to veterans of honorably discharged, people who served in Iraq, Afghanistan, and other places around the world where they're risking their lives for us.
Thank you. Mr. Whitman, you'll look into that? Okay. Okay. Okay, with that, the business part of this meeting is adjourned. Does anybody need a 5-minute? All right, let's try to keep it to 5, and then we'll start the count. 5 realistically is 10, but, you know.
Okay.
Ready? All right. So we'll resume with our committee of the whole. 1.0, is it 2 is the first one? 1.0, okay. The printout has 1.02. So 1.01 is, oh, okay, athletic budget. I'll call them out. Dr. Long?
Thanks. I thought you were going to skip me there for a minute.
I know you.
So this is a request for additional funds for the athletic budget. I was notified 2 Thursdays ago that the alarm went off in the office over there. So they notified me, and since then I've been having reports run and have many people help me look at the budget to find out what was going on. I gave you quite a few attachments, but the request for additional funds attachment, I went through and found out how many games each one of these teams are being played for the spring. And then the transportation, what I did was went through last year from March until the end of the year for the spring season, and I added 20% since the fuel cost went up. And then also I found out that the Guilford Township contract was not entered at the beginning of the year, so it would have been encumbered. So that was another expense yet to be paid. Came up with $95,000. I did a round of close to 5,000 for 100, and then what we're looking at is in the salary area of that budget, we feel that we can pull 20,000 out from when the previous AD left until what we have left from the substitute AD right now. I will tell you in the notable expense attachment, going through the very large attachment that says report from 2008 D note, and I thank Danette for helping me out in that. I know she left, but the notable expenses, I just want to review this. The $123,000 was missed last year due to some things with WellSpan and our previous administrator there. So we were short $123,000. I apologize for only asking for 100 originally because I found out that there were many bills that were not even put in the system that were laying there, and that skewed what we were looking at, the 3 of us that were going through at the beginning. I pulled those 3 back again and looked at it. So just some notable items there. As you can see, the rentals for different things that we have equate to $82,000. Uniforms were very high this year at $57,000. And football was very high. One of the main reasons for football was that PIAA changed the helmets. So we had to purchase new helmets to go along with PIAA. And then basketball and things like that were on the 3-year rotation, and I also have that as an attachment as well because I wanted everyone to see that. I didn't know that, so that's why I put that. I wanted to share that information because that was something I didn't know as well. And then coach wear, this was I found out later was not budgeted. I had requested that from the previous administrator, where was this in the budget, and he said it was. So this was another one of those things that was a surprise to me as well, even though it went through my approval process, and I'm frustrated with that. So also another item that was not budgeted, and we should probably gear up for this if our teams continue to do well. We had 4 teams go to states. So that was a total of $11,800 that was not budgeted as well for state competitions. I will tell you that next year, as it comes around, we do have a policy to use for distant travel to go to a coach bus. We are going to be looking at that to see if we can extend the trip a little bit longer before we get a coach bus. Coach buses right now, we have right around $25,000, and actually we pay half of that. The boosters pay the other half. So that's a very large expense for coach buses. So if we would have had to pay the whole thing, that would have been $50,000, and that's unreal. So we are making adjustments, but I do apologize that I am requesting this much money for the athletic department, but we're between a rock and a hard place right now because the kids have started the spring sports, and we have less than $14,000 remaining. So
But it's not like we would have stopped spring sports anyhow, so, I mean, it's kind of the reality.
I wouldn't want to do that because
Right.
I wouldn't.
The helmet thing from PIAA, was that like was there like a ramp-up time for that, or they just one day go, I like these new helmets, and
No,
so everybody's gonna
I
buy
do
them?
believe that there was a ramp-up time for that, and I just wasn't made aware of it. Mr. Walker wasn't made aware of it, so.
All right. All right, on the phone, any questions for Dr. Long?
Yeah, Dr. Long, this is Bill. Is there any way that we can put some kind of controls or oversight in place to keep this from happening again?
Yes, we can. And I'll talk with Mrs. Stauffer as well to see if there's any others that we can put right now. I will tell you, when we get a new athletic director, that is one of the first things that we're going to do is discuss this budget. I do have some ideas on how to do this with the new athletic director. We're going to break it up fall, winter, and spring sports. Allocate so much funds for each one. We're going to put all the contracts in at the first day of the school year. That way, all those contracts are encumbered. That way, they know exactly how much money they're dealing with. We're also probably going to do some transfers that, if we get through the budget here. I want to make sure that transportation and the 300s and the 500 is covered. 300s are the officials and all those other people, and 500s are transportation. So we're really gonna try to do some good calculations, but yes, we can, and I can ask Mrs. Stauffer what kind of other things that we can put on there to make sure this doesn't happen again.
Okay. All right, thanks, Dr. Long.
You bet.
Okay, Dr. Long, just to, I know being an official, we already know what we're going to get paid for the next 3-4 years in baseball.
That's correct.
They let you know that. I mean, the mid-pen does,
Yes,
for football, basketball, all that.
Well, I just found this as well, so I posted that. The official salary increases over time for each sport, so that's on here as an attachment as well. Yes.
Okay, because I know and I'm surprised what they're doing. I mean, I know it's $5 per year for the next 4 or 5 years in the baseball. I mean, it's just unbelievable. So I just want to make sure they're making you aware of that.
Yes.
So you know what to do in that. Okay, thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.
Well, and I agree 100% that the spring sports have to go on, and it would never be my desire to see sports not happen as scheduled. Likewise, as far as helmets and safety, if that was the reason for upgrades on helmets, that, certainly is something that we know that the concussion issue with football and so on is an increasing concern, and we need to protect our children. But I think that there has to be that oversight, that roadblock to prevent this kind of thing from happening. And there are things that you can get a cheaper model, or you can use uniforms for 5 years instead of 4 years, or there are ways to save money. When my gas bill went up, I cut back on the movies that I went to, for instance. You gotta change how you're spending your money to stay within the budget that you have, because there's not a reserve that's indefinite. Most of us have savings accounts, I would assume, but money can only be spent one time. And This is just unbelievable to me that this was allowed to happen.
I don't really think this is off topic, but I think it definitely relates. I know many times, and I know that you guys got the email too, but I've been past here and the kids are gone, and I'm telling you, these lights are like the field's on. It's all lit up like a freaking Christmas tree out there. And I'm like, where's the money coming from? How much money are we actually spending? Because as far as I'm concerned, that's all part of the sports program too, is like what we're like downloaded out there in the field and these lights, because it's got to be, we have to know how much that we're spending. And I mean, if we're keeping those lights on even an hour after the game or 2 hours after the game and they're still on, it's like, how much money are we wasting? I mean, how much energy are we wasting too? And I think that that needs to be taken in account. I mean, if we cut off those lights, then it's like you're saving that money, which indirectly is like, you know, we're giving it to the sports program then. Do you know what I mean?
Correct.
Because we've cut back on that time period of lighting. I don't know. It was just.
No, it's a good point. I drove past last night, and the lights were on, and no one was on the field as well. So.
Oh, it about kills me to go downtown and look at the courthouse down there, and it's like, are you freaking kidding me? It's like, we got to keep that thing lit up every single night. How much taxpayer money, or, well, it doesn't really matter, but it is. But people see that, and it's like, and that grinds me every time I go past here and I see that. So do we have, like, how much does it cost to, like, run those lights a night? Do we know at all?
Yeah.
Any idea?
You'll check and let us know, right? Yeah.
If I can.
I know, but it's just something.
I recall years ago that, and this was years ago, that the similar topic came up, and I think Joe was still here. And what I recall at the time was we pay a flat rate anytime the lights come on, and that's for the entire night. Doesn't mean that we shouldn't turn them off, but just for good conservation. But I recall that being it, but again, that was years ago. Recollection could be off, and it might have changed since then.
That was an agreement with the borough. It's just a unique setup.
It was you flip the lights on, and here's the amount.
Have we upgraded to LED?
It may be like a peak demand agreement or something. Yeah. As long as we're under the peak demand, it doesn't matter. Yeah. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't know.
Might be something.
But obviously, we can check into it. But.
I just think the savings, that if we save there, okay, then, you know, I think that it becomes like, okay, there's more money than for in the account period, even though it doesn't work that way. But in my mind, it should work that way. I don't know, but.
Now, Mark, you were saying, and it is great to see the teams going to states. Does the boosters help with any of that? On the states, you were saying, what, $11,000?
They pay half of the Bowman buses.
So that's all they, because of, so it's cost $11,000 for these?
For the
all
four
just for the four teams for the busing.
Well, and not to throw any of the teams under the bus here, but wrestling. Sorry, I didn't even think about it, what I said. Like wrestling, they need to stay overnight because they wrestle in the evening, and then they'll have wrestling in the first thing in the morning, so they wouldn't be able to drive back and forth like that.
Right.
Swimming is the same way.
Okay.
Yeah. So basketball can go down for a trip and then come back the same night, so it's no problem. But when you get hotel rooms in there, that really jacks it up, especially if they're at the state tournaments. A weekend, Friday through a Sunday or something like that. They're staying a couple nights.
See you, Bill.
POAA doesn't do like the NCAA, give you part of the money back.
No.
I didn't think so.
If you win, it's covered.
And I would
Dr.
assume
Fuller, I
that
have
you
a
could
question.
budget for that potential of playoffs and so on, and have it in the budget so that it wasn't a shortfall if.
Yes, and I totally agree, and that's what we plan on doing next year. because we have some really good players that are sophomores and juniors that will be here next year, so that's a possibility.
No, and I would hope it would be a possibility every year.
Correct. Correct.
The question I have is there whether something should be in writing from the administration on what we need to do so this doesn't happen again? Is it more review of the budget initially? Is it quarterly look at it? You know, some recommendations from you all so we don't find ourselves in this situation again. And it can't have any implications for spring sports because it's not fair to those kids that the budgeting was not accurately done. But to be out by $80,000 to $100,000 is a significant amount of money. And so if we could have some recommendations from admin, or these are the steps we're going to go through in the athletic budget, especially with a new person coming in and the responsibility that goes along with that. I know I've heard from some of you that, you know, at a certain point it stops them from spending, but if you're not putting in the bills, so we've got to get a better handle on it so we just don't find ourselves in that situation again.
And I'll work with the team.
Yeah, the team, if we can get something in writing so that, because it's a significant budget.
And to Dr. Long's point, I think that we have tried when we have new financial secretaries come in, and this secretary is relatively new, not placing blame on anyone. When the contracts are approved, that's when we tell them to put the contracts into the financial system so that it's encumbered, and then that money is not free to go, but it is the department head's responsibility to make sure that that is happening, and I think some things got missed along the way.
Well, and I know that this is for this district, we have what's called financial secretaries, which I was never familiar with that. But I really think that the person that is in charge of that department, be it the principal, be it the athletic director, really is the responsible person for overseeing that budget and telling the secretary what should be put in, what shouldn't be put in, what account it comes out of, how much is there. So it's really their responsibility, not a financial secretary's responsibility to keep a handle on that budget.
I'd agree.
You do not charge, I mean, at least I've never seen it when I've done games at Green Township. Do not charge anything for people coming in to see the baseball, whatever. What's the reason behind it? I mean, I know when they were Henninger Field. Now, I know Henninger Field's a little bit different. You had one entrance in. I know you have two entrances at Green Township. You have the gate down off Elevator Street or whatever it is, and then you got the other one at the top of the hill. Is there a reason why not? I mean, I'm just asking. You know, in softball, I know there's only one entrance into that softball complex, the last I knew. They go down the field. So I was just wondering, I mean, because the softball has been a tremendous sport for years. Yes. You know, and baseball, when I've been out there, and of course I can't do them now, but you know, get good turnout. But I'm just asking.
I don't know that, but I will find out and put it in the Friday folder.
Yeah.
Is that
I
okay?
mean, you know, I assume you don't charge, don't charge for the track meets either. Probably wouldn't get, I don't know how many people you would get for a track meet anyhow. So I don't know. That was my brother's sport, not mine.
Well, I know that one's difficult because you have the field events behind here that people just get out of the car and walk over to the field.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, over at the...
right behind here.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I
But
can
I'll
understand
find
that,
out
but
for
the
the-
baseball and softball, I would think, could be manageable, but I know you got to have personnel to man it. You know, I know that's part of it, you know, and be there at a certain time, because I know a lot of people just sit up on the hill at Green Township, you know, and maybe people say, hey, you're charging me.
Can I just add one more thing? I had said about at homecoming in the stadium that the sound system wasn't working and how hard that was to be there and not have a sound system. The same problem is occurring this evening. I've been getting texts this evening about the sound system not working again. You can't understand what's being said. So we got to get that fixed over at the stadium.
So, given the amount.
Dr. Shore?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I do have a couple questions when I get a chance.
Go ahead.
Okay. Dr. Long, you gave a couple specifics there. You mentioned the Guilford Township fee. Were we late receiving their bill, or were we late in processing or entering that?
The payment is not late. That's a contracted price each year, so we get that contracted price and then we pay for it at the season time. But what we want to do is make sure that it is encumbered within the system, so that should be done right away. Now, I've been in contact.
There were two of that, so it was previous season was never paid, and we had to hurry up and pay it?
No, the previous season was paid for Guilford and things. The only thing that wasn't paid last year was the well span bill for the trainers, which is $123,000 some odd dollars, so.
So do I take it then that last year we would have been over budget by 123,000 if?
We were actually 126,000. We turned in 126,000 last year.
So we had the same problem last year with the budgeted amount not having adequate funds.
We had enough.
Oh.
We had enough. We had actually turned in 126,000.
Oh, okay.
Because
whenever you said turned in, you mean it went back to the reserve?
It went back to the reserve.
Okay, okay, so I did not understand that part, okay.
Yes.
So if I recall, maybe not, that 123,000, we discussed that at a previous meeting, Dr. Long, and that was paid out of unassigned fund balance because of what was left from previous year.
That's correct.
Is that correct?
That's correct.
So so this
wait, Mrs. Stauffer. Mrs. Stauffer's going to correct
in addition
me.
to that other 123,000, is that correct?
No.
Go ahead, Tammy.
We did a budgetary transfer for the WellSpan bill that was not paid last year, so it came out of the budgetary reserve.
But I think I understand you to say that money was put into the budgetary reserve because there was excess last year.
Yeah, we really don't look at it by department because there's so many accounts, but based on what and I'd have to go back and look at the athletic budget last year and make sure. What they have access to is what they can spend. So there's more expenditures that hit athletics than just what we call the 300 to the 900 objects. That's what the departments have access to. The salaries and benefits, they don't have access to. So when we look at it from the department standpoint, I'm going to look at it from the whole 100s through the 900s to see whether they were over or under in terms of budget. But to Dr. Long's point, if they didn't pay the WellSpan, they had $126,000. That would have gone back into the fund balance.
Mr. Norcross,
so
other
that I'm
questions?
clear, this 122,000, that doesn't include this 123,000 that was already paid.
No.
Right?
No, it does not. The prior budgetary transfer was done, I think it might have been February.
I believe it was February.
Yeah, and that was to ensure that not only could they pay last year's bill, which they did, but that they had money for the current WellSpan bill.
Correct.
Right.
Okay, and you mentioned, Dr. Long, coachwear. What's coachwear?
Coachwear is the previous administrator wanted to make sure that our coaches were uniform, so he purchased shirts and different things like that to make sure that they look the same and appropriate for games and things like that. Coaches.
Okay, and that was
uniform.
And that was something we never did before.
No, it was done prior, but I don't think it was this much money spent.
How much was it? How much was it for coach wear?
$13,000.
How many coaches is that?
So
it's quite a few, but I still. They just get one shirt? They got a shorts and shirts, hat and polos.
Can't they just show up in cut-off jeans? Just a thought.
Mr.
So
Norcross,
Dr.
other-
Long,
Go ahead.
yeah, if I
Keep
can,
going.
I have several questions, just trying to get through them here, I apologize. So was there not enough budgeted to start with? Is that part of the problem here?
To be honest with you, I think they have a really nice budget. So it was just not manipulated well throughout.
So this year's budget, do we know this year's budget, the 22-23 budget, how did it compare to the 21-22 budget?
It was the same.
Do we know that number?
It was the same amount. It was $576,000. And then we added the $100,000 for the well span, so that made it $676 compared to last year in February. So it was the same budget as the previous year.
So you feel like the budget is
And
sufficient?
this goes back
I
to
feel it is
Mr.
right now.
Leonard's first comment, and Dr. Diller said the same thing. We can't just talk about controls, all right? There needs to be a lockdown policy, what these financial controls are. Like, for instance, does the department head get a monthly report, object function, budget versus year-to-date in any department?
Yes,
Is there such a document?
they have reports that the financial secretaries can run on demand. They can run them every day if they want to. Those are created
So
and
let's go to the controls. I really want to dive into this because we got to get this nailed down. So who is responsible for running the monthly reports?
that would be the
Or is it an
department's
at-will?
financial secretary.
And it's part of their duty to run this report monthly, or it's an at-will option?
That would be up to the department manager.
So does anyone run this report?
And the department manager also has the ability to go in and look at his budget without the financial secretary running the report.
Correct. The financial system will provide the budgetary amounts, the amount that's encumbered, pre-encumbrances, the amount that's been expended, and the amount that's remaining by account line, and also in total. Because we budget control some accounts together, because, for example, if you look at the report that Danette ran for Dr. Long, that's a 60-page report that we have to do because we have to report that way to the state. They want to know how much expenditures have been spent on 8th grade girls basketball compared to 8th grade boys basketball. So they have to, everything has to be accounted by these different account codes. So we'll budget control those groups. They can run reports by budget control group to see like, okay, how much is remaining in that, all of those counts together. But they do have the ability to look at that, on demand. Basically, they can go in and look at it. They just need to log into their, what we call their DAC, their Distributed Accountability Center.
So there is no policy or procedure for any department head or any building principal to go in and review their monthly report, and there is no policy, protocol, or procedure to do a monthly or quarterly review between the business office and the department head and the principal.
It would
This is all just something, it's all at will, it's available if they want to do it, but they don't have to do it.
It's not between the business office and the department manager. It would be between the department manager and their direct supervisor, who would be responsible for that. So, for example, in my division, I would look and I'd sit down with Bobby and talk about the transportation budget, or sit with Ed Peters and look at the buildings and grounds budget. But it's not the business office's responsibility to look at the athletic department. That's really under Dr. Long and the high school. They're the financially responsible people to manage those department budgets.
Well, in my world, apologize, private sector, but, I had to do monthly reviews, and yeah, it was with, my subordinates and my bosses, but there was always someone from the finance office sitting in the room, and the person from the finance office is the one that's asking the tough questions. But if we don't want to do that, but it sounds like we just have no real procedure, policy, or control. And when we don't have such a control, this is what you can end up with. I mean, this could could have been flagged, should have been flagged months ago. And whether it was mismanagement, misappropriation, late entry of encumbrances or whatever, it doesn't matter. If you have the control, you would be looking at that, and you would, and someone should be seeing it. But it has to be a culture and a set control policy procedure. You know, hey, this is your responsibility to sit down and review it. And if we have to go through a sign-off procedure, I mean, you got to sign off for everything else, then there ought to be a sign-off procedure on it. But this is just ridiculous that you can go spend money and do whatever, and then at the end of, 3 months before the end of the fiscal year, you say, oh, I'm out of money, I need more money. We need to have better. We need to be better.
Well, and I don't disagree with you, Mr. Norcross. I mean, our controls are on the front end. So whenever someone enters a requisition, they cannot enter it unless there is budgetary dollars available. And the control process is the approval process that we have in the financial system. So the requisition is entered by the financial secretary. The department head reviews that, and they approve it. And then in this instant, it would flow to Dr. Long. He would review it and approve it. And then it comes to the business office for us to cut the purchase order. It would be hard for me to know whether a department is appropriately spending their money or not by whatever they've got going on. $500,000 is what the AD is responsible to manage within the department. To do that across this organization with $176 million would be difficult for me to know whether they're spending everything to the T or not.
How about a variance report and like the 60-page report? That's way too deep. That's the last resort. But is there not a report that could be generated monthly showing last year's budget, last year through the month of March, this year's budget, this year through March, just by function and object? Is there such a report? When you see a variance there year over year, then you can dive in deeper. You don't have to look at a 62-page report every month, but I don't know how many line the object function report is for the athletic department. Is that a 3-page report, 10-page report?
It's a 60-page report. The one that you saw is the accounting report for the department.
That's the detailed expenditures, isn't
Yes.
it? Showing basketball uniforms and everything else. Does
Yeah.
it not roll up into a function and object report?
Yeah, we could roll one up like that. Yeah.
I mean, that's what you need to, I'm not asking anyone to look at a 60-page report. That's ridiculous. But if you can roll this up into function and objects, and then you're just looking at, you're not looking at 60 pages, you're looking at 3 or 4. When you see one of those lines that you're getting a variance, then you dive into that 60-page report.
Ed, I was just showing Mark the report that we get at the Career Tech Center, which is called the General Fund Budgetary Comparison Summary. And at the end of the various line items, there's a percent of the budget that was spent in up till February 23rd. We just got that last week. And it's a simple report that I can understand, and I'm not, I have trouble with my check register. No, I'm just kidding. I don't really have trouble with my check register, but, I can understand this. I'm not a financial person, but I can understand this report that we get at the Career Tech Board, because it says that for the vocational programs, Perkins ESSER, 81% of the budget has been spent by February, compared to some other line item here, non-instructional services, 0.5% of the budget has been spent. Easy to read.
Exactly, Mrs. Gogler. It's a variance report. I get one to Township every month. Now, granted, Township's a $4.5 million budget, not a $170 million budget, but it's a variance, right? It shows electricity. Boom. It shows wages. Boom. It doesn't detail Joe, Jim, Tom, Sam, Sally, Jane wages. It's just wages. And then if you want to dive in, you can dive in. We're doing a disservice to our department heads and our employees if we're not able to generate a summary report for them to manage their own budgets. I mean, we're asking them to manage their budgets, but we got to provide tools to do it.
They do the same thing at the Franklin Learning Center. They give out that percentage and all that, you know, simplified.
What program are they using to do that? Did you got the same thing?
They're using, or I think they're using, IU uses the same financial software. And we do run percentage reports, but we don't do it by the department level. That is something that could be done. It's just going to take more work. And, you know, again, with 176 million, I need staff to be able to make those things happen. So.
Well, computer reports generate themselves, don't they, after you?
You still have to, I mean, you have to run them, like we have a lot of, put the speaker back on. We have a lot of different people who are responsible for budget. So like in Mark's division, Mark has his budget, he's got the high school budget, he's got both of the middle schools, he's got the athletic budget, technology. You go to Kurt, and Kurt's got a ton of different department budgets under him. He's got pupil services, special ed, the counselors, the psychs. So there's a lot of those things. But they do have reports. I don't want you to think that they don't have reports that show them where they are year to date on their spend. They do have that, and they have access to that information.
Maybe you could show us a sample of one of those.
Sure,
at
we
some
can do
point
that.
here, so we can see them. But I do worry about this thing of financial secretaries, because I really believe it needs to go to the person, the principal, the
athletic
person-
director.
The athletic director.
Yes.
It's not the secretary's job to maintain this budget. And so this financial secretary situation, I think, is putting too much onus on those people versus the people that really are the responsible individual for that budget.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with you. You know, if I can say, for example, in transportation, Craig knows his budget, and so does Ed. I mean, they know their budgets. The dependence on the financial secretary, again, I think is up to the financial manager of whoever's doing it and how much they rely on that person.
Well,
But their primary job is to do the entry of the requisitions into the financial system, generate the orders, make sure that they're getting it into the right account code, those kinds of things. I don't really.
But I wonder if a training is not needed for these people that are responsible for the budget, and that they should be looking at that, like Ed said, monthly, or pulling it down or printing it or whatever. Like I used to have a printout right in my desk drawer, and I knew exactly how much was in every account. And I did not ever spend that because I knew. And I went to the secretary and said, please enter this requisition. But I was in charge of that budget, so it was not the responsibility of the financial secretary. And I'm wondering why do they have that title? Why are they called financial secretaries? Where did that come from?
I can't answer that question. That's been around a lot longer than I've been here. It's a decentralized approach to purchasing, which I don't really care for, but it is something that's been in the organization. We do have some challenges with it. You know, we have school code that we have to meet in terms of bidding and quoting and using the proper procedures to do that. I honestly don't know. If Mark, you've been here longer than I've been here, but they've.
It was here when I was hired, so I don't know.
And then we have confidential secretaries. Well, I would assume that every secretary should be confidential. I don't know why that title is on there. That just, you know, there's the financial secretary and then there's a confidential secretary. We want everybody to be confidential that's in a school system. So I don't know, where did that come from? Have any idea?
Well, and if it changed 20 years ago, is there any reason why it can't change in 2023 to a better system to have better control?
No.
I mean, just because it's been here since Dr. Long started, if he's the oldest of the, no, not oldest, but the longevity-wise has been here the longest. You know, it doesn't matter that it was here when he came. It matters whether it's working effectively. And if it's not working effectively, then we've got to change it. And somebody ought to be smart enough to say, this is a change that's going to make it better. And maybe this is a wake-up call to us.
Can we put this back in perspective, okay? can we just put this back in perspective? Okay, we got one department, you know, the athletic budget is what's on the agenda tonight anyway. Okay, we've got one department, okay, that wasn't managing their budget right for whatever reason, you know, either, you know, they didn't give a damn, they didn't bother with it, they didn't care, but they didn't manage their budget, one department, okay? So we don't need to, you know, catch our hair on fire and think all the other departments are going to follow suit. All the other departments are running, you know, their budgets the way they are supposed to, responsibly. We have one department that's, you know, that's screwed up, and, you know, so that department then is the department we should focus on. Not you know, revamp the whole accounting system because one department had screwed up.
But I thought I heard Tammy say that
Mr.
there's
Leonard,
problems
Mr.
with
Leonard,
the
I
system.
don't disagree that we need to maybe focus right now on this one department, but I think we have to be careful with only making a set of rules for one department.
Well, no. If that department,
let me finish, please, Bill. But you mentioned about controls. We need controls, and it needs to be across every department. And this, you know, right? It takes one person to spoil it for everyone. Maybe is an old cliche, but you know, whatever controls we come up with, then it needs to be across every department so that this doesn't happen again.
As I understand that there's several documents here, and I'm trying to piece together like how the different pieces all fit together. But as I understand it, the athletic budget, the yearly comparison, right? It's really limited to most of the expenses are actually down this year. Like if you look at the 6 categories that are given here, general supplies is up 12,000. But there's really just one category here, right? We're talking about WellSpan and officials. And WellSpan, we have a 123,000. We're paying 2 years worth in 1 year, right?
Right.
That's the entirety of the issue.
Did you not say that there are bills that weren't even
Yes,
plugged
there were-
in?
there
So
were
this
bills.
is not even an accurate because you found out after the fact?
Correct.
Yeah, that's what I thought I understood you to say. So after the fact, you found out there's a whole bunch more even than the 70,000 for repair maintenance. That might be 90,000, who knows, I don't know.
So you're saying this is incomplete?
This is incomplete because
Okay.
he found other unpaid bills. That's what I heard.
Correct.
But as I look at the categories, though, year over year, we're actually, it seems like we're fairly similar in most of the categories.
This is the beginning of the budget, beginning of the year budget. This is like 22, 23, we put this 676 in because that was the extra $100,000 that we put in there.
Mhm.
So it's still the same total without the 100,000 as last year, the 576, 750.
Mhm.
So each area though was changed a little bit as far as moving money around in the different groups. So I don't know why that was done as far as moving them into different groups. As far as like general supplies in 21, 22 was $11,000 more in 22, 23 than 21, 22. And then also transportation was reduced, I mean, quite a bit, $40,000.
Why was that?
And that's, don't know, because I can't answer that because I don't have the gentleman to ask that question.
Yeah, that's a problem. So that, from an expenditure standpoint, that's why we are where we are. Yeah.
I do want to say there are some very good points tonight.
Yeah.
You know, Ed made some very good points, and as well as many of the board members, and also Bill at the end when he mentioned that it's one department. But to Ed's comments, it's something that we could remind our department heads. You should be looking at this monthly, and we can put that into a protocol and work with our department heads. I was principal, 2 different buildings, head principal for 14 years. Not once did I have to come and say we overspent, because met with your financial secretary, to Dr. Diller's point, knew what the budgets are. And most of our groups, are like that. Now we have, pupil services is a different animal.
Yeah, well, that's different.
And, we have, all of a sudden we have to ask for whether it's new contracts during the year or something that we need, that, okay, now, that budget is quite different, but curriculum instruction stays within theirs, technology stays within theirs. I just want to say that there are some great points tonight, and this has been a good conversation for us to have, but it's something that we can look at, talk with our department heads and say, you should be looking at this monthly, and our principals that have had budgets for a very long time, they stay within their budget. And going back to all of our department heads that Tammy said, or B&G, excellent at staying within the budget that they're allocated, and same thing with food service, all of our departments. So I just wanted to say that there are some very good points that Mr. Norcross made, and also online with Mr. Lenartz and the folks here. So thanks for the discussion.
All right. Two things then I'll add. One is, I also heard we'd support if Mrs. Stauffer wanted to look at changing the process flows, then have at it. I mean, just because of what. Well, it's certainly worthy of evaluation to say, is there a better way to do this? And you might end up saying no. In the end, we keep what we have. But in the other way, you say no, we're going to do it differently. So.
It is. I'll be honest with you. The procurement process here, and Bobby's heard me talk about this. Other folks in my department, it doesn't make me happy. It gives me angst. Yeah. So, but it would be a big undertaking that we'd have to, really think through and try to get it to implement. But I also wanted to state too, in the years that I've been involved with the business office, I can maybe recall one other time that athletics had to come and ask for money, and it really wasn't much, and it was because of postseason. But normally the budget, as it's built, there is money in there for them to be able to carry on their postseason. So yeah.
Good reminder that this is just, it's as bad as it is, it's an anomaly.
Yeah.
All right, and then given this, we'll move it to the agenda for next time, but we'll make it a separate voting item instead of consent agenda, or is everybody fine with consent?
Oh, I'm fine with consent agenda.
Okay,
because
well,
the
make a
sports
consent
have
then.
to go on.
Yeah.
All right.
I agree.
I'm all up for consent. Makes it easier.
I agree. I do have one thing, and maybe this is a bill payer, but so it's postseason. What about the special activities fund? Could we use that to offset any of this new special activities fund that we have? Is that a possibility?
Mr. Norcross, are you referring to the AD athletic fund, not the special revenue fund? The one that we
there
set
was a presentation with
WellSpan
was going to make a contribution, and it was we created a special activities fund, I thought, within the athletic budget.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, and I'm looking at Dr. Long. We've not received that payment yet from WellSpan, so.
We didn't receive anything yet.
Yeah.
Do we know was it sent?
We invoiced them. I think twice. I think Tracy in my office sent at least 2 invoices to them, and I believe Dr. Long's been in touch with the individual that.
The trainer supervisor, yes. And he said that it was within their financial system right now.
Okay, but so when we get it, would any of these overruns be would would using the special activities fund be acceptable for any of these overruns?
I think maybe. I'd have to look at that agreement again, but I don't see why not. Because the intentions were that we were going to set that money in like an assigned fund balance for future use for athletics. So I think it possibly could, yes.
All right, thank you.
All righty. 1.02, Paratech Home Health Associates.
And this is a new contract, hopefully to save us some money. We currently use Maxim, but this company will work with us and our parents to first check to see if the parents' insurance will cover a PCA or nursing services that our children need. Our director of special education has already have a few parents lined up to that agreed that they can do this. So rather than us having to do more contracts with Maxim for nursing, this would be covered through working with this company. Now, if a parent doesn't have, then we would be using this just like we do with Maxim Nursing Services.
What's the Cobra?
Any questions?
So when would this contract go into effect?
As soon as the board approves it, but we're already meeting with parents for next year. They're doing pre-screenings with kindergarten students that need services, and we have several kindergarten students that do need nursing services.
Do you know how many nurses this contract would, how many additional nurses do we need?
I would have to find that out. I don't know that offhand. It depends on, it's placed in their IEP.
So do we have an idea? Well, you say it's going to save us, it's going to be a cost saver. Any ballpark guesstimate?
Our special ed director worked with this company before, so I would have to ask her what the savings that they looked at before. So I can get that for the Friday folder.
So will we be able to pull back from Maxim and use this company more?
That's the hope, yes, is that we would be able to have more students that we first check with the parents and to have their insurance cover for the services.
Any idea how the pay for the nurses under this contract compare with the nurses that are currently on board in the district?
Yes, it's very similar to Maxim. I think we have Exhibit A at the end. Personal care associate would be $32 an hour. A licensed practical nurse would be $55 an hour, and a registered nurse, that's a certified school nurse, would be also $55 an hour.
Is that what our nurses make that are on board currently? Because what I'm getting at is, I don't think it would be a good idea to bring nurses in under a new contract that are going to get paid better than the nurses that we already have in-house.
Yeah, these nurses are not the nurses that we have under contract like our LPNs and our CSNs. These are nurses that would be used just for one student, and it also covers personal care associates as well.
It's a one-to-one situation.
These are nurses that we have for special needs student that would need to be with one student, say they have a feeding tube or something like that.
Catheterization.
The likelihood of using a registered nurse would probably be about zero.
Yeah. I don't know if you heard Mrs. Gogler there. Likelihood of using a registered nurse would be pretty low.
Okay, consent agenda. 1.03 Hoffman Academy contract for one student.
Yes, this is a contract for one student to attend Hoffman Academy.
Mr. Norcross, is this one, Hoffman, we have to keep it separate,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, I need to keep that separate. I have a family member who's on the Hoffman board, so you can keep it separate. That will allow me to abstain.
Okay. All right, so move to the agenda, but not in consent agenda. Separate item. 104 special ed, final trust settlement agreement.
We covered this in executive session.
Okay. 105, quote for renewal of MAP Accelerator. I'm sorry, yes. The special ed final trust. Any issues with anybody putting, all right, so consent? Yes. Thank you. And quote for renewal of MAP?
Yes, this is in the curriculum instruction budget. This is our, what we actually presented, the projected proficiency summary that we gave at CIT yesterday. We've been using MAP for a considerable amount of time. It's to renew that contract.
I'm just questioning, in talking with some other districts, there are districts going to the Acadians for K to 5. And I know we've used that in some of our classrooms this year. And I was wondering if we could have a presentation on that to see if that would be viable for our K to 5, or even started out, or K to 2 or something. Because I think, you know, I really think where the assessment really drives the instruction and the detailing that is given in that. I mean, this is new. This is I think can really help us. I know that it's important to have longitudinal data, but when I look at that number for $121,000, you know, we also have other data that we can use as well. But at least starting maybe and looking at the Acadians, because I've heard such good things about it.
And we can give a presentation on the differences between both as well.
Yes, and you know, start somewhere, and if we could have Mrs. Brookins involved in that, because I think she's been working with that program in some classrooms. If we could do that,
Yeah.
I'd appreciate it. So could that be pulled till we have the presentation?
Didn't we have a presentation
We
similar
did.
to that in
We did do the differences, yes.
curriculum and instruction?
Mm-hmm.
But we didn't see.
You were there, right?
Yes, I was there. But what I saw at Fayetteville Elementary was very different than what I saw at that presentation.
Okay.
And it's
But-
really good. It's really good stuff. And another thing is, I mean, teachers that are using Acadians and using it well, let's talk to them. Let's find out what's going on with that.
I was thinking that the presentation clarified the value
of both,
utilizing both, and I left the meeting feeling pretty good about using both.
Well, I don't see the importance of spending, what is it, Acadians is $750, and I think this one's like, how much per person? $13.50? You can't double test these kids. Like, we wouldn't want to give them MAP and Acadians. I mean, that's too much testing. You have to do one or the other.
I compare it to a doctor ordering a CT scan and an MRI. Is it cheaper just to get an MRI in the beginning because it gives better information? Or do you have to go through all these steps? And, you know, so I question personally if we have enough time to be analyzing 3 or 4 different assessment methods. OCR, the Open Court, has assessments. The Acadians is doing assessments. The MAP's doing assessments. You know, at some point, you almost have to hire an assistant for the teacher to analyze all the data in order to utilize it.
I guess
too much data can be as bad as not enough data.
Well, using your analogy, Mrs. Gogler, I would say this is more like ordering an MRI and also some blood work. so not a CT and an MRI. So these are two different tests. And what we can do is we can have, if we want to put this not on the consent agenda, but a separate item, we can have, you know, the discussion of what are the benefits of both and why do both.
Well, and
I'm confused about why we're even having that, though, because I think everybody asking questions right now was at the curriculum meeting, and I thought it was laid out pretty well there. In fact, we had a number of principals there as well, and they all explained the value to us as well. And I felt like maybe I misunderstood.
Yeah, they didn't speak at all.
Speak at all.
Okay.
They were just sitting in the audience.
Okay, so maybe I've heard from them separately.
Yeah.
So, but what I had heard from principals is that they see value in both.
Well, I guess the point is that there has been a principal that has successfully used this program to very well. I mean, I went to the presentation at the elementary school because I asked for it, and it's really good for kids. So if it's really good for kids, let's look at it. So if we're using the MAP testing, how are we using it? How are all the elementary teachers using this to inform instruction? Or are we using it to say whether the kids are making progress? When we now have all these diagnostic measures in our reading program, why do we, there's just too much.
Well, and we have PSSAs in addition to all of this.
That's a benchmark.
I've been told that there's a projected computer program for Acadians that's going to be introduced in the next year. Is that an accurate statement?
You're saying projected proficiency?
No, a computer process. The Acadians, as I understand it, is paper and pencil.
Correct.
But there's projection to be going to a computer analyzing of the paper and pencil information.
I would
What's
have to
the
check
cost?
on that.
What's the cost of that additional thing? You know, I could be wrong. I often am. But
How many elementary schools are using Acadians right now? Is it just Fayetteville?
All of them.
All of them. So if they're using it, and how much are we paying for Acadians?
I don't have that at my fingertips. I'd have to.
I mean, I was quoted a price of $750. So if we're paying $750 for that, and we're paying for the MAP testing, why would we need both?
They're two different things. Can we give a presentation to the entire board?
Yes, I would like.
And,
But I would like
and
to know.
utilize some teachers that are using it, not just people who are in an office overseeing it. You know, I think that the people who are boots on the ground, as I often use the saying, need to be consulted to tell us, yeah, I am using it, and not cherry picking, you know, the teacher either. You know, I think, I don't know.
I mean, if they're using the MAP testing,
So do we want this on the agenda for next time for a presentation with the potential action?
I would like it for presentation and maybe action after that.
So do this again on the cow?
Yeah, do this
that'd be fine.
at the cow, and then end of April would be action if, whatever action.
It's nice to hear a presentation, absorb it, and then go forward with how you feel about it.
Do you want the same presentation we did with curriculum instruction?
No, I do not.
No. And I think,
What would you
we
like
need
to be
to
different?
look at what other districts in the, not just county, but this is a national testing.
What would you like to be different from the curriculum instruction?
Well, the presentation that I saw at Fayetteville, which that principal showed us, it was excellent. So something like that. He showed how they're using it for their grouping, how they're using it in their instruction, and how it all fits together. It was so well done.
All right, so Cal, presentation. All right, demos. This is what we got the presentation on last time, I believe.
Yes, this is bringing forth a recommendation to purchase the Desmos that you had the presentation on by the folks, the math teachers, last meeting.
Yep, they said over there.
The only question I had was, are we using it at the middle schools? The teachers that spoke at the curriculum meeting were high school teachers, and when I made that comment, it seemed to me as though it was kind of like, oh, yeah, I guess maybe, but.
Now, currently, the middle school has, K to 8 has Eureka. It is something that in the future we can certainly look at, but right now this is going to be for 9 through 12.
So in other words, if a student is in middle school and they are accelerated enough to take algebra in 8th grade, they're not going to benefit from what they would get if they waited till they were in 9th grade to take algebra.
Right. Well, we can look at that, but
I mean,
at the
I
point
need to know
where
that
we're
because
using
I've
it-
got a kid that
be
I'll
going there.
say don't take algebra in 8th grade because I see that this is a super program.
Right, and would that be a total of, right now, 5 sections? So with the numbers that we probably put in here, we can probably offer that, and we can offer them PD this summer as well. Now, those teachers didn't get to see it in action. It was the 9 through 12 that teach algebra.
I like that idea. So middle school 8th graders, if they're advanced, they're going to be.
Absolutely, I think it'd be great if they.
I thought they didn't even have it for the lower grade levels, do they?
Well, but this is
This
algebra
is
1,
just algebra 1.
regardless of grade.
Algebra
You
1
could-
is
You
algebra
could get
1
that
when you take
program.
it
Yeah.
in 10th
In 10th
grade, or
grade,
if you
okay,
take
well,
it
you're
in
right, yeah.
8th grade.
Yeah.
Right.
You only take it in 8th grade if you're pretty smart.
Right, figured so, yeah.
It'd be good for them to have it.
Make that part of it.
All right, so some comments to look into, but okay to move to consent?
Mm-hmm.
All righty. Early graduation.
We have a Cash's student that has met the requirements for early graduation.
Sounds good.
I think that's commendable.
Yeah.
Wonderful, happy for them.
Huh? Well, going into nursing.
I can say he wants to go into a nursing career.
Yeah.
path, so
Wonderful.
That's all.
Wonderful.
Can't
I
say
saw
much
that.
more, but
Wonderful.
it's so.
Happy for them.
All right, consent and exchange students.
Well, last time I was, Bill said it was okay to say where they're coming from. So we have a student from Italy and Japan that have met all the requirements to go to Cash's. And they both have been accepted with families in Chambersburg.
Yep.
All right, consent. Anything else?
Sounds good.
All right, it's a wrap.
10:14.